Night 2 of the NBA draft is upon us, and we are live from Bleacher Report Studios in New York City. I am your host, Greg Waddell. This is my co-host, Carter Elliott. We are joined by some of the best in the industry tonight. Jonathan Wasserman is with us. Jake Fischer is with us. Both of these gentlemen will help us break down all of the chaos that is in store on Night 2. As we turn the page from last night to tonight, I think there's one name that we are all waiting for to be selected, Rashir Fleming. A little bit of a surprise to not see him come off the board in the first 30 picks of this draft. And as we turn the page, he is the #1 player on Wass's big board. Wass, I want to throw it to you. How surprised are you that we are still waiting for Rashir Fleming to be picked?
You know what? I had my original mock draft him going 31st. It's not the craziest thing in the world. He wasn't invited to the green room, which is, somewhat of a telling sign. I did have a team ask me right before we came on live why he wasn't picked. So I think teams are a little bit surprised. Listen, there's always going to be one guy who gets left out. And Fleming was it this year, but it apparently doesn't sound like he's going to fall too far. He'll be the first pick of the second round. He's got a very projectable game, but I think there are a few questions about a pathway to upside based on his potential weaknesses. But I'm sure we'll get into that once his name is called.
You alluded to what may happen here in just a few short moments. Let's throw it to the fishbowl. The one and only Jake Fischer has some updates for us on Rashir Fleming. What's up, Jake?
It's going to be Rashir Fleming at number 31. Someone that I think his range really started around number 17 last night with Minnesota, depending on how the board broke. But we were expecting chaos last night, and there were indeed a ton of trades all throughout the first round, and we're expecting a ton more tonight as well. The number 31 pick, as you're seeing right here, is already being moved. As the tweet up on the screen shows, the Minnesota Timberwolves were fielding calls from all over the league at the top of the draft here, this #1 pick of the second round, which is kind of exactly why the league wanted to break up this night into a 2-day event. And the Timberwolves are the clear beneficiaries so far, having a full, work day today to really talk all these deals with teams. And we're gonna see more trades. Like right now, already 31 has been moved, 36 has been moved. 36 was originally moved to Phoenix, and that's how the Suns moved up with their 52nd pick, which they originally also had, and the 59th pick that they got from the Rockets in the earlier Kevin Durant trade. So the Suns were clearly aggressive here in trying to go and get Rashir Fleming. They had front court holes. They obviously achieved filling some of those holes already last night by getting Kaman Malawach at number 10, by trading the 29th pick and a 2029 future first to Charlotte. Now there's some buzz that Boston is even evaluating trade at 32. I would I'd be surprised if one of 33 and 34 with Charlotte isn't moved. They've been really conducting a lot of trade calls as well. And all down through the 40s, there's going to be, I think, a lot of movement, because the last thing I'll say here, from talking to agents today all day, a lot of teams have been trying to basically kind of pre-negotiate what type of contract the player they're taking at whatever pick they are choosing from is open to, whether that's just a standard second round exception roster spot, whether that's a two-way contract. I heard that teams as early as the mid-30s have been trying to get players to basically agree to a two-way contract there in order to get picked with that selection. So there's going to be a lot of that kind of behind-the-scenes negotiations going on before these picks end up getting finalized. And I do think we're going to see, like the Lakers, there's still a lot of buzz about them wanting to move up from 45, which they already did previously. Some Denver trade talk about them wanting to move in. They don't have a pick currently. So we'll keep you updated on all that stuff as we move through the second round here.
All right. Thank you, Jake. If I could summarize everything you just told us, it sounds like we're going to have Jake Fischer on the phone quite a bit in this second round, giving us the latest updates as teams try to move into this round. There are quite a few players that made a splash last season in college basketball still on the board, certainly some great international prospects. Carl, I want to throw it to you. Who are some of the best players available in your mind that we may see called shortly?
Yeah, I think on this, looking at Wass's big board, you have some high-level talent players. Chaz Lanier is one of the best shooters in college basketball next year, shoots a lot from everywhere on the floor. You had Javon Small as well, Tyrese Proctor, who was a big part of that Duke team with a lot of success. Kam Jones, Adou, Thiero. There's still some very high-level talent that you're seeing on this board. And also you have the storylines with the whole NIL thing, Greg. Obviously, there's a lot of guys that are in the second round that maybe could have gone back to school, earn more money, but are now doubling down on themselves, wanting to achieve their dream of playing in the NBA. But definitely some high-level prospects here. And hearing Jake talk about that, it means we're going to be in the fishbowl a lot tonight, and that has me excited.
It's a fun place to be.
It's a great place to be. That's where I want to be.
I enjoy the fishbowl.
That's exactly where I want to be.
All right, so Fleming is going to come off the board here at 31. That's the expectation at this point. That was the name everyone was surprised, quote-unquote, that he fell to the second round. From here on, it does feel like it's sort of just being at the ice cream stand and picking whatever your favorite flavor is. You could be a team that wants shooting, and you could talk yourself into Chaz Lanier, maybe Kam Jones. You could be a team that wants front court skill, and you could find Maxime Raynaud. Maybe you want some toughness defensively. Watkins can certainly give you that on the wing, Adou Thiero inside. Was, I'm looking at your big board right now. You got the top 10 right there. Outside of Fleming, who's about to come off the board right here, which players do you think are likely to hear their name called in the next couple of picks?
I think Maxime Raynaud was, I guess, one of the bigger surprises in terms of who didn't go in the first round. And based on all the buzz that occurred over the past month since his big NBA Combine scrimmage, when he shut it down the next day. And, it just reminded you to go back and look at this tape here. He's a 2010 guy who's 7'1", who made 67 threes. I think only two guys in NCAA history have averaged 2010 and made over 50 threes. So he did some pretty unique, unprecedented things on the floor. And those things he did are pretty coveted by the NBA. So for him not to get picked was a surprise. I talked to scouts after the Combine who said he's closer to the lottery than he is to number 30. Obviously that wasn't the case. But I can't imagine he's going to be on the board very long. I have him at 32 right now in my reset second round draft board going to Boston.
Cart, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been tampering with Raynaud for your college basketball program for a few years now. You love him, right?
Yeah, the moment he entered the transfer portal, I really thought that he would maybe take his talents elsewhere. He had all the blue bloods on him. North Carolina was in on him big time. And you see a lot of players in this transfer portal era take their talents to another school. But credit to him, he did stick with Stanford. He had a very, very productive year in the ACC, one of the better players in the ACC. And, you look at what the modern NBA big is. He can rebound. He has the height, he has the size, he can shoot the ball. I think he's underrated with his passing as well. Seeing some of those other bigs go late in the first round, I was on the same page as Wass there. I was a little bit surprised given that he wasn't picked kind of towards the end of that first round.
One of the storylines for me from night one was the many members of the Brotherhood, the Duke Blue Devils faithful who were taken. Cooper Flagg, obviously the number one pick. Conca-Nipple, 4th overall. Kaman Maluach in the top 10. Cedric Howard, even a Duke commit who came off the board at 11. Tyrese Proctor, you see him in the top 5 of Wass's best available right now. This is a guy who I thought got a lot better, made big strides last season after a shaky sophomore year at Duke. He was so solid from a shot-making perspective as Duke continuously won games in the ACC and then ultimately made a run in March. Cart, what are you thinking Proctor's fate could be tonight? Do you expect to see him off the board here in the next few picks?
I do, because I think there's some positional value there. Obviously, when Tyrese Proctor first came to Duke, there was lottery buzz. He's not going to get outside that top 10, but he kind of settled into his role after a shaky year. He defends at an extremely high level. He's got good positional size at the point guard spot. Played a little bit off ball this year with Conca-Nipple, kind of taking some on ball duties there. I do think that Tyrese Proctor is kind of a prototypical NBA role guard. He's got some comps to guys like Derek White, who's one of the best role players in the NBA. I do think some NBA teams are definitely going to be looking for what Tyrese Proctor can bring because he looked great against surrounded by some really good players with Duke last year, and I thought he really settled into his role, which led to Duke being very successful last season.
Duke was great last year. Arguably the best team in college basketball last year was the Auburn Tigers, led by the one and only Jonathan Broome. If there was any player who was going to challenge Cooper Flagg for the National Player of the Year award, it was only Jonathan Broome last year. You know, sometimes we see great college players that have issues that prevent them from being taken early in the NBA draft. Johni Broome has certainly struggled with injury in recent months, but this guy was as productive as any player in college basketball last year. I don't see him in Wass's top 10 best available right now. And honestly, I haven't talked to Wass about his thoughts on Johni Broome. So, Wass, if you don't mind, how do you feel about Johni Broome as an NBA prospect?
Listen, I think he's a pro. You know, when we talk about top 10 from 30 to 50, it depends what you're looking for. I think there are 10 guys on the board who have the potential to offer more value and more upside. Broome is a high floor guy, not necessarily a high ceiling guy. So depending on who I'm picking for, and I always have to kind of preface my big boards by saying I'm not picking these big boards. I'm not picking for anybody. If I'm the Celtics or I'm the Pistons who are really trying to, get over the hump, and I want somebody who's going to be able to give me 15 minutes next year, then Broome's going to be higher up my board. But yeah, he's a guy who can give you 15 minutes. Next year, he'll give you some finishing, some toughness inside. Good passer. He can make outside shots, and that's going to be a big key in terms of being a guy who plays 10 minutes or being a guy who could be a regular rotation player if he could stretch the floor and give you that interior toughness. But, as a 23-year-old player, right, there's a couple guys on the board who I think are a little bit more enticing.
Maybe most importantly, Johni Broome gives hope to people like me who have very small verticals. Did you see him at the Combine? That was not a great look.
Yeah, for us on this couch here who can't jump over a phone book, it was really good to see. But like we always say, you always got to take the Combine with a grain of salt because you play the game of basketball, and Johni Broome was unequivocally the second best player in college basketball behind the number one pick in Cooper Flagg, and you can't argue with what he was able to do on the basketball court.
At times, I think the best, honestly. I think it was a real debate at points of last season. So we'll see where Johni goes tonight. We do expect to see his name called. I've got to ask you guys about a name that's just screaming at me from this big board right now. Kobe Sanders from Nevada, 10th on Wass's big board right now. Cart and I have joked about this for years. We are guys that will stay up late watching whatever college basketball game is still on at the wee hours of the Eastern time zone. And Nevada was one of our favorites. You could call them our college basketball league pass team last year. And Kobe Sanders was the biggest reason why. I mean, this kid has just awesome skill for the size that he has, just an enormous guard, an NBA-sized guard, and he did just jaw-dropping things every single night in the Mountain West Conference. Card, I'm really rooting for this kid. I hope that we hear his name called early tonight, but take me through what you think of Kobe Sanders' game.
Yeah, I mean, well, first things first, you look at him, and Kobe Sanders is a NBA wing. He's got the body. He's 6'7", 200 pounds. He fills it up at a very high level. I think he passes the ball at a high level. When you tune into the Mountain West, a lot of people came away watching Nick Cliffords of the world, obviously Donovan Dent, who's now playing with UCLA. But Kobe Sanders was one of the more productive players in that league. And given his size and his scoring ability and how he kind of touches every bit of the box score, you can kind of plug him in to maybe be that NBA role player a la, I mean, we might as well use another Nevada player. The Martin twins had a real good role, ended up being really good in the NBA. He can kind of be in that same mold with his body type and the way he just kind of ticks every bit of the box score. I think you can give some really good value with him possibly, and I think a team's going to benefit from getting him kind of in this second round area.
So I mentioned, Cart, that you attempted to tamper with Maxime Raynaud at points for your college basketball
I tried to
team.
tamper with everybody.
Yeah, pretty much anybody on the big board. You've been in the DMs of, my friend.
Maybe,
I know this.
yeah.
Jameer Watkins, he was my sweetheart at points in the last few years. There were flirtations from my Michigan Wolverines and Jameer Watkins. Ultimately, he ended up finishing his career at Florida State. This is a kid who, again, was rumored to potentially come back to college, maybe get one extra year of eligibility and test the transfer portal this past year. But if you're looking for size on the wing, if you're looking for just immediate impact defensively, but a guy that can also, as you see in these clips, kind of give you some isolation, can process the game, make good passes, just a physical specimen. I think he's an NBA-sized wing immediately right now. I like Jameer Watkins quite a bit. It's good to see him on Wass's big board. Wass, as far as Jameer Watkins goes, how early is too early for him? Could we see him in the next couple of picks here, or is that a stretch?
It shouldn't be a stretch. In fact, I'm looking at that big board, and I'm like, I wish I had him higher. He's somebody I've liked since early last year. I love the archetype. Who doesn't love a guy who is 6'7", with a build like Jameer's, who could also play point, wing, and be your lead playmaker. Of course, he doesn't put up efficient shooting numbers from behind the arc, but this year 1.7 threes per game. He improved his shot making. I'm not so worried about the percentages. And man, I just love the particular versatility that he brings to the table. And again, for me, the difference between 33 and 37 on my board is nothing. And if I'm a team that has a need or a pathway for a prospect to come in and play minutes at the wing spot, then Watkins probably jumps up a couple spots on my board. I'm a big fan. I think he should definitely be one of the top 10 picks in the second round here.
So it warrants reminding that we have seen Hall of Fame level players come off the board in the second round of the NBA draft through the years. Nikola Jokic is the greatest example in the present day, but Manu Ginobili, Draymond Green, guys that came off in the second round and helped contribute to dynasties in the NBA. I'm looking at this board right now, the next teams that are drafting. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves, although this pick is going to Phoenix, the Boston Celtics, certainly the Philadelphia 76ers, if we get Joel Embiid healthy, are teams that plan to compete. You can find pieces in the second round that will ultimately contribute immediately to winning a playoff series. And I want to play matchmaker here. We know that Rashir Fleming is about to come off the board 31st here, the first pick in the second round. But we've got Boston on the clock at 32. We've got 2 picks for Charlotte until we hear news that maybe one of those gets moved. Card, I'll throw it to you first. If you were drafting on behalf of Boston, or if you want to advance into the Charlotte picks as well, that's fine. Who are some names that you think make sense in the next couple of picks?
So I don't want to skip ahead to Charlotte, but if they could somehow get Maxime Raynaud at that spot, I think that would be really, really good for that team to bring some front court depth. Obviously, looking at the potential starting lineup for them next year, the bigs they have under contract, I believe, are Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta. So they need some bigs with some versatility. And, you're looking at the rest of the second round, G. There's a lot of teams that could use guys that are ready to play right now. And I'm looking even at Wass's big board. There's a lot of 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, guys you can play right now. There doesn't really need to necessarily be the learning curve that you might see with some other younger prospects in the first round that you're maybe buying on their ceiling a little bit. So there's some real big, I think, players that can contribute right away.
So Minnesota is officially on the clock. Reminder, this pick will go to Phoenix. So our clock has started. We expect this to be Rashir Fleming. And we will announce that pick as soon as it is officially announced in just a moment. Was, I want to throw it to you next. Let's ask you the same question we just asked Cart. Boston upcoming, 2 picks for Charlotte. What are some fits that you could see that make sense?
What about Ryan Kalkbrenner? They just traded Porzingis, right? You kind of need another big guy in there. Of course, Raynaud is the obvious one, but we kind of talked about him already. I think Kalkbrenner is the better defensive prospect, 2-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, very good in pick and roll coverage. If he could just become a regular threat from behind the arc, I see a lot of Brook Lopez in his movement, the way he operates. But I think it's as simple as a 3-ball unlocks a lot of upside and is the key to him becoming a valuable, even starting caliber player. But one of the most productive college players over the last handful of years, offensively, defensively. He rebounds 65%. I mean, it's like he never misses, particularly when he's inside 10 feet. And so, I think he's got a pretty clear path to a backup center role. But man, if he starts hitting threes, then we have a steal on our hands and somebody who I think Boston can use on a regular basis.
Yeah, just a supremely efficient college center, a guy that I talked to Cart quite a bit about during the college basketball season. At times, we felt like he was capable of carrying more of the scoring load for Creighton at times, but he really did develop. He got better as a shooter. He got more aggressive and more comfortable being kind of that go-to primary option for Creighton. So I agree. I think that would be a fantastic fit. And as I look at these upcoming picks here, it dawns on me that we talked about this at the end of last night a little bit, but to me, the biggest story of night one was GMs with a vision for what they hoped to accomplish in the NBA draft. And maybe if it even felt like they made some picks that were redundant to each other, they were going to execute on some of these visions, like the way Brooklyn did, getting all of that playmaking, the way Charlotte did with their shooting with Con Knipple and Liam McNeely. We've got 2 picks for Charlotte coming up here. I'm staring at the big board. I see Chaz Lanier right there. If Charlotte really wants to go all in on grabbing the best shooters in this draft, they have an opportunity to add another player into that mix. And that leads us to the 31st pick in the draft here. Phoenix has made their selection. The pick is in at pick 31, and we expect this to be Rashir Fleming. Let's see if we are correct. Yes, we are. Phoenix will select St. Joe's forward Rashir Fleming at number 31. As Jeff Goodman notes, Fleming has high upside and an improved perimeter shot. He could be a steal at 31. Card, I feel safe to say he is a steal at number 31.
He definitely is. Rashir Fleming, he has great measurables, 6'8", does a little bit of everything, elite athleticism. Playing for St. Joe's this year, his ability to stretch the floor really enticed NBA teams. And throughout the year, he kept gaining buzz from NBA teams, showing the skill set that he has. And I think he got better every single year he was at St. Joe. So NBA teams are kind of banking on him being able to continue that development, continue that outside shot. The size is there, the wingspan there, everything is really there. I think this is really good value for them at this spot. Was, what do you think about this pick? What do you think is the grade for Rashir Fleming?
Yeah, I mean, this is an obvious best player available type of guy. A lot of teams had him in the first round. In fact, I had teams telling me, he's rising. And so the draft is a crazy event where everyone thinks the guy is rising and suddenly he's there in the second round. This is, at 31 overall, this is an A. How could you complain about this pick? If you go back to my first mock draft I ever did in October, I think I had him at 34 as an early second-round pick, so I wasn't so far off. Listen, the archetype is very valuable and translatable. He is a 6'9", stretch 4, who shot nearly 40%. He was actually at 39% from 3, and I think it's a very simple projection here. You have a guy with 6'9", good build, 7'5" wingspan, and 39% from 3. You're going to ask him to do, have a very simplified role. It's stretch the floor, make your spot up threes, and be a beast around the basket as a finisher and shot blocker. They're not going to ask him to do anything else. He's not going to put the ball on the floor. He only averaged 1.3 assists in 31 minutes. He's not going to be a playmaker. He's got a very simple job, and I think, the 2 things he does well, finishing and shooting, should translate for him. So a good pick, a guy who I believe can play right away just based on those 2 strengths, based on his physical tools, which are NBA ready, and a jump shot that not just the numbers say is good, but looking at from the eye test, he's got pretty good form, really nice fluidity from behind the arc.
It's a guy whose frame you just quite frankly don't see all that often. 6'8", 232 pounds. He will not be overwhelmed by NBA size and athleticism. Was, what's your comp for Fleming?
I believe I picked Taylor Hendricks, which was, their scouting reports are almost identical. Of course, you see Fleming with the longer wingspan. I guess Hendricks may be a better athlete. But in terms of what they do, it's the same exact thing. And Hendricks was a lottery pick a couple years ago. Of course, he got hurt. But I think these guys project to have very similar roles. They're not going to be go-to guys in your offense. You're not going to feature them. They're going to be very valuable complementary players who bring some defensive versatility, some rim protection, and some floor spacing offensively, and they'll give you easy buckets. But in the right role, and for a team like Phoenix, I guess, I can't picture their exact depth chart off the top of my head, but I believe they could use a player just like him in their front court.
Yeah, you step back and look at what Phoenix has done last night to tonight. Kaman Maluach, Mark Williams was acquired. They basically bolstered their center spot. Now you get Rashir Fleming in the front court. It's a team we joked about had a surplus of shooting guards, and they, I think, have drafted really nicely complementary pieces that can play right away around them.
Yeah, getting great value with man-man in the first round, then go out and get a wing like Rashir Fleming, whose role is going to be very evident in the NBA, like Was kind of laid out there. I really like what they're doing. It's a team with a vision. You can see what they're doing. They're getting long athletes, and I think it's going to work out well for them because they definitely needed some front court help.
Card, I hate to cut you off. This is my least favorite thing to do on planet Earth, but I'm hearing news that we have an update from Jake Fischer. Do we have a trade? Fish, what can you tell us?
We do have a trade. Regretfully, I have a typo in my tweet. But the number 32 pick is being dealt from the Boston Celtics to the Orlando Magic to select Noah Penda. The Magic are moving up from number 46, and they're trading a 57th pick as well, and a 20 and 2 future second rounders. So it's a big price to pay. It's a little bit more than I think Phoenix just gave up to get to 31 from 36, but this is a much bigger jump. And I will say, the word I'm getting right now is that Boston, they really did like Rashir Fleming themselves at number 32, which is what influenced Phoenix to move up and take Rashir Fleming. And then right after it came out that that's who Phoenix's target was, Boston sent out word to the league that they were shopping the pick, and they fielded a lot of interest, but it's now the Orlando Magic who are taking that slot. And like I said at the top of the show, I'd be shocked if one of these next 2 picks for Charlotte doesn't get moved as well. So we already have the top 2 picks of the second round getting moved. We're probably going to have 3 of the top 4, and then that 36th pick already traded, which is where we'll see Minnesota, who moved down from 31. So plenty of, 46, 57, and 2 future seconds is the price point here. So keep that in mind. These price points are what Charlotte is going to be looking at, what Philly is going to be looking at 35. Basically, you're going to need a pick later. I mean, it's been 2 later picks in this draft and 2 future seconds. That's been the price point to trade up into the top of this second round here. So again, Charlotte at 33 or 34, we are definitely monitoring for one of these picks to move as well.
All right, thank you, Jake. The market has been set if you're trying to move up, and we can officially announce it is Noah Penda, who has been selected at 32 overall. He will go to Orlando after they acquired the 32nd pick from the Boston Celtics. Noah Penda from France. This is a kid that was very productive. He helped France win the gold medal at the 2024 FIBA U20 Eurobasket event, averaged 12 and 9. A guy, we just talked about Rashir Fleming with size in the front court. Noah Penda, 242 pounds at 6'7", guy that can play the 3, also play the 4. I'm very curious to see how he impacts Orlando immediately. I do think he has the game that he could play right away, but again, this is another guy that you could go the developmental route with as well. Was, I'll throw it to you. What's your grade for Noah Penda at 32?
Yeah, Penda is, he was a trending prospect throughout the second half of the year. I could see why. You know, he brings a very unique dimension of versatility. Again, you talked about his measurements. He almost looks like more like a tight end than a basketball player. But with that body type at 242 pounds, let's just talk about the analytics here. 15% assist percentage, which is pretty solid for a guy like that. 2.5 steal percentage, 3.7 block percentage. He was a defensive playmaker. He passed really well. He finished well. You know, he wasn't really a go-to guy in anybody's offense, but he was kind of a connector piece, do a little bit of everything without having a core strength. I mean, I'll give this a B plus at 32. Of course, it's going to be hard. Listen, I'm going to be nice here in the second round. I'm not going to give anybody a bad grade this late in the draft, but I could see why teams like him. I'm a little bit hesitant to see a pathway to upside without having any plus strength, but he can do a little bit of everything, and I think he has the chance to be a nice playmaker. I think he's probably going to have more value on the defensive side of the ball than he will offensively.
Yeah, that versatility defensively, I think, is going to go a long way with that Magic team, especially because they have guys on that team that can score the basketball, but you always need someone that can check a lot of different positions, especially in the NBA game today. Are there any player comps that come to mind for you for Noah Penda, Was?
Yeah, Nicolas Batum is kind of the, of course there's the French connection there, but it's kind of the same idea as a guy who does a little bit of everything. He's a wing with power forward size. He'll pass, he'll defend, who you hope will eventually be able to make the open shot. You know, he wasn't bad. He wasn't great from downtown. He wasn't bad. He could make those spot-up threes the way Batum did throughout the course of his career, but that's kind of the idea. He's a connector piece who's going to be able to guard a couple different positions, and you hope that you can surround him with better creators, better scorers, and better shooters, and he'll be the glue between all of them.
From one jumbo French wing with some skill to another. I like the comp, Was. That's pretty solid. All right, back on the clock here. We have the Charlotte Hornets, 2 consecutive picks at 33 and 34. As you just heard a moment ago, Jake Fischer alludes to the idea that maybe Charlotte will move one of these picks. We've seen a bunch of movement early in the second round, so it will not be a surprise if Charlotte makes a move. We'll give you the latest as soon as we hear it. But for now, Charlotte on the clock at 33, on the clock again at 34. What's their biggest need, Cart?
I mean, they picked up 2 shooters in the first round with Kam Jones and Liam McNeely, 2 guys whose roles are very, very clear with 2 very safe floors. They could go that route with more shooting. Like you said, Chaz Lanier is staring at them right now. He was one of the best shooters in college basketball, great size, range from everywhere on the court. They could definitely use him as a guy who can score as well. Tyrese Proctor, also, you could maybe look at him as a guy who could be in a backup guard role next to a heavy offensive guard like LaMelo Ball, provide that defensive versatility, be a connector guard. It'll be interesting to see if the Hornets kind of stick with their same mold that they had in the first round, kind of taking safe floor, good shooters, good team guys.
Good team guys, huh?
Yeah, first in, last
Couple
out.
good team
Yeah,
guys?
you know,
Yeah.
key to the gym type guy.
Redefine the culture, sure. All right. Was, what are you seeing here? What's the best fit for Charlotte?
Man, I like Jamir Watkins here. You got a couple of shooters in the first round. Get yourself a tough wing defender, and Watkins stands out to me. I'm a big Javon Small fan too. I think they rely a lot on LaMelo for creation. Maybe you get yourself a better backup ball handler, but yeah, Adou Thiero is certainly going to be in the conversation, and I think a trade-up target for another team. So again, I'm with Jake. I can't imagine they make 2 picks back-to-back, but Adou would be, I guess, one of my guesses as a trade-up guy if somebody does make a move.
All right, we have word that the pick is in for Charlotte at 33. They have selected Sion James out of Duke. We were just discussing the brotherhood, Tyrese Proctor, as potentially a name that could come off the board quickly. Instead, it's a different Blue Devil, and it is Sion James. He only played 1 year at Duke, transferred in, but made an immediate impact defensively, was a leader, the toughness, some of those things we honestly just talked about that maybe they would look to add in Jamir Watkins. They've added in a smaller package, maybe at the 2-guard spot instead of on the wing, but I don't know, guys. I see the vision here with what Charlotte's trying to put together as far as rebuilding this culture. I think Sion's a great addition to what they already added on night 1. What do you think, Hart?
Yeah, I don't want to throw myself out there too early because there's still a lot of the draft to play out here, but I love what the Hornets are doing. I think that they had a lot of players like LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, other guys who can really score the basketball. And through this draft, I think they're filling a lot of needs, including shooting. And Sion James is just an on-ball dog defensively. He's going to lock up the best guard. He's built like a linebacker, but he has the speed of like a skill position player. He is, I think, a guy you plug and play right away that can really help this Hornets team. I think it's a good pick for them here, Was. I'm interested to see what your grade is for Sion James.
Listen, I'm surprised. This is much earlier than I expected him to go. But I really like it for this particular team. If another team took him, depending on who it was, I probably wouldn't grade it as favorably, but I love Charlotte favoring a guy like James who is super high character and obviously incredibly tough. Another guy looks like he could play in the NFL tomorrow. 19% assist percentage this year. At that size, to be able to pass the way he does, one of the big numbers that doesn't show up in the basic stats, 47% catch and shoot. So, again, another guy who can spot up from behind the arc, move the ball, makes good decisions. Obviously, with that incredible frame, he's going to be a defensive presence. I'm going to give this a B+. He's not the best basketball player I've ever seen, but I think if you put him in the right spot, kind of like what Duke did this year, where he just kind of plays that glue guy type of role, I think he could succeed in the NBA, and that's exactly the type of guy that Charlotte needs. I like this pick for them. If 25 other teams took him, I might grade it, closer to a B- or C+, because he doesn't have a ton of upside. But I love him for Charlotte.
And he reunites with Duke teammate Kam Jones here as well. If we want to complete the brotherhood triangle here, maybe we take Tyrese Proctor at 34. Who knows? Was, what's your comp for Sion?
How about Wendell Moore Jr.? I think they kind of do similar things, or at least they did similar things in college. I know Wendell Moore hasn't had a big NBA career, but look what we're talking. We're talking about second-round guys here. I think their scouting reports are pretty similar. Clearly, you see here they measure. Wow, Wendell Moore had a 7-foot wingspan. That's funny to know. But yeah, these are guys who are big wings, who are kind of playmaking wings, do a little bit of everything, but don't have any signature core strength.
If we're doing surprising wingspans here in round 2, Cart, you want to stand up?
Honestly, my favorite part of this is that my measurables will never be put on display for everybody else because they would not be pretty.
I mean, I'm just going to say, you're what, 6'7"?
On a good day, yeah.
Like a -6 wingspan, is that what it is?
Let's not do that, giving away your shape, please.
It's early,
Please.
early. Charlotte's back on the clock. For now, I have not been notified of any additional moves just yet from Charlotte, so we'll see if they make this pick here at 34. I made the joke about it with Tyrese Proctor potentially being another ad, but honestly, I wouldn't hate the idea if they did go 3 consecutive Duke players with Liam McNeely mixed in as a 4th here. I think, I don't know, what they've done tonight and yesterday really is bring in some guys that are not going to be demanding of needing the ball, but will contribute defensively, are high IQ players, are just hard-working guys that have gotten a lot better over the course of their careers. It really is sort of the coachability tropes that we joke about often, but I don't know. I see the full vision with this at this point. If they wanted to go upside, Was, who do you see on the big board? This would be a departure from, I guess, what else Charlotte has done with their first 3 picks, but if they shoot for the stars here, what would that pick look like?
I mean, I still, Raynaud, I think, probably has the most upside left. I mean, again, a 7-footer that averaged 20 and 10, that could play inside and out, that shoots the 3. I mean, he probably has the easiest pathway to upside. And Thiero, if he's able to ever make a 3-pointer or have that become a regular part of his game, he's got some upside. I like Kam Jones. I know he's fallen a little bit in the minds of scouts, but he wasn't. I can't wait to get to him. I'm sure he's going to get picked somewhat soon. A big-time shot maker, always one of the best finishing guards in the country. Good size for the position, and really improved playmaker. So those are the 3 names that jump out. A lot of these guys, again, second round, we're talking about role players here. You're just hoping to find somebody who could be a 7th, 8th man and give you some production on a very cheap rookie contract.
All right, the pick is in for the Charlotte Hornets at 34. Let's see if they do go upside or if they continue what they've done. There you have it, a name that we mentioned. The Charlotte Hornets are selecting Ryan Kalkbrenner with the 34th pick in the 2025 NBA draft. I loved watching Kalk get better and better over his Creighton career. This is a guy that came in immediately and was one of the best rim-protecting centers in college basketball, but the strides he made offensively, the skill that he added, and honestly just the dog aggressive alpha mentality that I thought he added by the time he left at Creighton was really enjoyable to see him add to his game. Was, I want to throw it straight to you here. What's your grade for Ryan Kalkbrenner, 34th to the Hornets?
I mean, this is a good pick. It's a good pick for this particular team. They traded Mark Williams. Kalkbrenner is, I would think, an NBA-ready guy, at least based on how many years he's played in college, all the production, his size. He's not going to be a go-to guy like he was at Creighton, but he is very skilled around the basket, really strong defensive IQ to go with the defensive tools. This is an A- to get Kalkbrenner at this after, as your 4th pick in the draft. So I'm good with this pick. He fits a need. He's a safe guy, and if he's able to start making threes, and I think he hit 16 and 17 back-to-back past couple of years. You keep seeing these flashes. If he's able to, make these regular occurrences in his game, something that he can consistently threaten defenses with, that changes everything, and he becomes a first-round value. So I like the pick, particularly because it's the 4th pick they made, and to get Kalkbrenner, I'm into it.
You add these 4 guys together, too. Con Knipple, Liam McNeely, Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Sort of has the sound of a college basketball all-star team to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of high-level guys on there, a lot of high-level defenders. Ryan Kalkbrenner, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East, one of the best rim protectors in the country, doesn't foul, love what he does. Was, I'm interested to get a player comp for you on Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, my player comp I don't think is overly exciting. I think it was Castleton, if that's correct. But yeah, it was. That's more of a realistic comp. As a guy who I thought could be a backup center, who'll give you some easy buckets, who'll play some low post offense, will block some shots. Nobody who screams all-star center. I think there is a pathway, again, if we want to talk best case outcome. I said it before. He moves a lot like Brook Lopez. And somebody, again, if he just starts making threes the way Lopez did. Lopez was not a big-time three-point shooter out of Stanford, and he added it to his game over a decade's worth of NBA games. And everything changes. But I think realistically, in the beginning of his career, you could expect a guy like Castleton, who's a very skilled center who can play at both ends in the paint.
All right, we've got the Philadelphia 76ers on the clock at 35. But first, we are going to check back in the fishbowl with Mr. Jake Fischer. Jake, what's going on?
The Hornets wanted to trade one of these picks, but they stick there and they take Ryan Kalkbrenner. Kalkbrenner, I think, was in play at number 32 with Boston as well, but they obviously traded down, and that cleared the way for the Hornets to take him here. I think it's also interesting. Kalkbrenner, to my understanding, would have been Phoenix's number one guy on their board at number 29 last night. But of course, that 29th pick went to Charlotte, which went to Liam Keneally, who's now Ryan Kalkbrenner's teammate. And if that's not an example of the musical chairs that is the NBA draft, I don't know what is. So Ryan Kalkbrenner, this was kind of right in where his range was. I think people around the league thought he wasn't going to get past Philadelphia at 35. The Sixers, I think there is an expectation they're going to take a big man here, but we'll see what direction they go.
All right, thank you, Jake. Timing is everything, and apparently timing was off on a potential Charlotte move, but I don't think Charlotte's complaining based on what they just added here to their four-man class. We move to 35. The Sixers are back on the clock, and if you remember back to last night, we said the draft started at 3 with Philadelphia, with the rumors that they may look to move that pick. Instead, they stayed home and selected VJ Edgecombe. I think Sixers fans are pumped up about that. As Jake just alluded to, I would think the biggest need at this point, with VJ already in the mix, is probably in the front court. And I mean, man, Maxime Raynaud is just screaming at me as far as best player available if you're looking for a center at this point. Cart, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue, like Waz said, with the productivity. He has the size, the shooting, he rebounds, the stats are there. The production is also sustained over multiple years. I think when you had the 76ers front court, they need some depth there. You never know if Joel Embiid's going to be fully healthy. And I think Maxime Raynaud is someone that you can plug into the front court right away and can provide some minutes right there for them.
Yeah, I think if they do opt to go front court, that's got to be the best available answer here. If you wanted to go further down the board, maybe an Amari Williams sticks out. Maybe you're just looking for a smaller front court piece like Adou Thiero, but if you're just looking best center available, Raynaud would be my pick. Let's see. The Sixers are going a different direction. They will select Jamai Broome with the 35th pick in the NBA draft. Okay, we talked about Jamai at the top of the show. The only player in college basketball that rivaled Cooper Flagg. And when I say rivaled, I mean rivaled. I mean, there was a serious full stretch of last season where Jamai Broome was deserving of winning the Wooden Award in college basketball. Ultimately, the injury bug bit him and Auburn tapered off a little bit late, but no one will deny the production. No one will deny how unstoppable he was as an offensive, defensive force on both ends for that team. The question is he healthy? The question is, will he get that athleticism fully back? But whether or not you believe that that's coming, I think he's deserving of a moment like this. Was, I'll throw it to you here. Is this too early for Jamai, and what's your grade?
It's not too early. We're at 35, but there are definitely other guys I have higher ranked in a vacuum, and particularly players who play that position. You guys talked about Raynaud. I certainly had him ranked higher than Broome. But listen, Philly, I think, just really wanted an NBA player. And I think there's been some questions about the locker room and the leadership in there, and Broome is an absolute leader. I'm going to give this a B+. I can't be mad about this pick. He's going to come in and he's going to bring maturity. He's not going to feel like a rookie on this team. And we've seen his skill level really expand over the last handful of years since transferring to Auburn. And a big thing, again, with him is if he could start knocking down threes, which he started to do over the last couple of years, that is a big new layer to his offense. In the meantime, I think his value revolves around toughness inside, rebounding, shot blocking, finishing through contact, giving you those bully buckets with his back to the basket. He's a very good passer. If he could start to stretch the floor, suddenly his value changes. And he clearly has the touch. You saw a couple of those highlights. He hit some step-back threes. He's really tried to expand his offensive repertoire, so I give him credit for that. Whether that translates or not is anybody's guess. But I think there's no doubt that Philly has just gotten a player that they could use right away next year, and certainly a plus for the locker room.
Yeah, definitely a guy that's highly productive. I think the 76ers training staff might have took a deep gasp there because they might be feeling the front court depth and the training room depth, but highly productive. You can't argue with that. Was, what's a good player comp for a player like Jonathan Broome who does a little bit of everything?
How about Markieff Morris? I mean, I feel like that's the type of role player you're looking at. Again, a guy who plays inside and out, not a go-to guy, nothing flashy about his game, but just a hard-nosed, reserved, big guy. And again, if he could start making shots like this on a regular basis, he's got a chance to be a starting caliber player. I'm sure. I don't have it off the top of the head, but I'm sure Markieff Morris has started plenty of NBA games. And so, depending on the rest of the guys in the lineup, I think there is a pathway for Broome to be a starting big man if he can become a regular stretch four threat. But again, this comparison revolves around their toughness, their strength, and then that potential to be a bit of a stretch big.
Yeah, our stats and research department tells us Markieff Morris has started 381 games. So there you have it.
Yeah, I guess I missed 300.
Car, you made a joke about this, but injury questions with Jamai, and I mean, you pair that with Joel Embiid, but hey, we all have our vices. I love a lemon-based seltzer. You love your 3-wood. Apparently the Sixers just love front court stars with injury concerns. I mean, what are they going to do here?
Well, it's always the vision that if they stay healthy, if they're on the floor, they're really good, highly productive players. It's just last year, Jonathan Broome, when he was on the floor and healthy, he was so good. And I honestly think some of his shortcomings at the NBA Combine is when he was doing those tests, he looked like he was hurting a little bit. So if he's fully healthy, he can contribute right away. He's older than some of the players probably on the 76ers right now. So I think that it is a good bet for them. They just got to make sure he's good.
And
also
this too, right?
Call God, as
Call
always.
God. Okay, to the 36th pick. This is Brooklyn on the clock, but we have a trade, and I believe this pick is going to go to the Lakers. Yes, it is. The Lakers have acquired the 36th pick in the NBA draft, and I believe the pick is in as well. The Lakers will be selecting Adou Thiero at 36. There you have it. Lakers are taking Adou Thiero. The pick was originally traded from the Nets to the Suns to Minnesota, now to the Lakers. Goodness, I'm confused. Adou Thiero, this feels like the right general range for him. You saw him right in the middle of Wass's best available right now. A guy that I thought really carried an Arkansas team that had a whole lot of ups and downs throughout last season, but the constant for the Razorbacks was Mr. Adou Thiero. What are the Lakers getting in Adou Thiero card?
I mean, they're getting a highly productive player. I think he's an elite athlete. He gets to the basket, finishes at a very high level. If Adou Thiero showed any consistency from the three-point line, only shot 25% last season on 43 attempts, I think he's easily a first-round pick. He has the size, the versatility. You see some of this stuff getting out defensively, finishing above the rim. An Arkansas team that I think needed some veteran leadership and some veteran scoring got it from Adou Thiero. Honestly, I've loved this fit for him. I think that he can, do some things that contribute to the Lakers right away. And having a versatile player next to the stars that they have, I think could go a long way for them. I know they were maybe rumored to take a center, but you can't argue with what Adou Thiero can bring to this team. Was, what are you feeling and thinking about this pick?
Yeah, this is a good pick this late. I mean, there were points during the season where he was close to the late lottery in my mock drafts. And then he got hurt. He never really got to show the improved shooting, which was what every scout wanted to see this year. But I thought he did make some improvements this year with his creation, finding different ways to score in the half court, and not just relying on athleticism. This is an A for me. I mean, again, to get him this late, and one little thing unlocks a lot of upside, and it's just to become an average three-point shooter, because his athletic ability makes a lot happen at both ends of the floor in transition, cutting, defensively. With his physical tools, he's going to be able to guard your other team's top scoring wing, which is what I assume the Lakers are interested in as a bonus with him. But I do think he got better this year in terms of his skill level, using his handle, scoring in the mid-range a little bit, but physically, athletically, I mean, I have a different comparison, but he looks visually like OG Anunoby, who obviously is a much better three-point shooter. But again, if Thiero can start knocking down spot-up threes, everything changes for him, and he becomes a valuable player.
I'm not going to be able to shake the OG Anunoby shout because I totally see it the moment you say that. But, Was, what's your actual comp for Adou Thiero?
Yeah, I think Keldon Johnson is kind of the idea here of these big, explosive athletes. And just thinking about Keldon Johnson when he first came into the league out of Kentucky, his signature, his bread and butter was just attacking and using that athleticism and putting pressure on the rim and defending. And eventually Keldon Johnson became an okay three-point shooter. And I think that is the hope with Adou Thiero. But again, their games revolve around their bodies, their explosiveness, the pressure they put on opponents, both attacking and defending.
All right, our Detroit Pistons are on the clock. I say "are" because Carter and I, as Michiganders, are Detroit Pistons fans. We've had to wait quite a while to see our team on the clock, Cart, and it sounds like the pick is in. Before we see this pick, do you have any last-second dreams, any wishes that you're praying the Pistons will do with this pick?
I just want to be happy, and I think there's some options to make us happy. I'm going to go ahead and say Maxime Raynaud once again. Chaz Lanier is also available. Wash, your big board is speaking to me right now. I see a lot of options available for my Pistons. I don't want to jinx it and say they can't mess this up, but there's some good options for their team needs, so hopefully they make the right pick.
I mean, you've been flirting with Maxime Raynaud for years. It would only be right if this is the pick. Let's see, the pick is in. Okay,
all right.
Pistons will select Chaz Lanier with the number 37 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. This was the number one player on Wass's big board. This was one of the best bucket getters in college basketball last season. Cart, you say it all the time. What's your favorite thing with basketball players?
I love guys that put the orange thing in the 10-foot thing, and Chaz Lanier does that amongst the best of them. Great size at 6'5". High-volume three-point shooter, also high-volume three-point maker. Transfers into Tennessee this year, becomes that number one option for Rick Barnes, and he more than exceeded, I think, what people wanted him to be. Wasp, please give me a good grade on this one. I need it. If you're going to grade on a scale, please do it on this one. Give me that A.
Yeah, no, I love this pick.
Come on.
And a quick funny backstory. January of last season, I was doing some research, and I found this kid from North Florida who was putting up big numbers, and I'm watching the film, and I'm like, who is this guy? I never heard of him. He's putting up incredible numbers. I sent him a DM on Twitter to find out more about him. When's your birthday and all this stuff? He gave me his info. He blows up and then transfers to Tennessee, and he does it again. This is an A+ for me. I love this kid's game. I think he has the right mentality for it to translate. No, he's not going to be a 20-point scorer in the NBA, but there's no question, in my opinion, that he is going to have a long NBA career just doing what he does, and that's making shots. He's one of the best shot makers. And again, not just spot-up stuff, but he was one of the top 5 off-screen scorers per Synergy Sports in all of college basketball, and somebody who can get you a bucket without needing a ton of dribbles. He can shoot off the bounce, but he's going to be such a plug-and-play guy in Detroit's system, and they just added another bucket getter who is going to stretch the floor, and somebody who can catch fire and hit you 5 threes a game once his confidence starts pumping.
All I have ever wanted was a Wasserman A+. I just got one. My grandchildren will hear about this one day. I love this pick, Cart. Let me just be a fanboy for a second here.
Please.
We just watched our Detroit Pistons finally make it back to the playoffs, and we believe that they have a guy that can possibly lead them to an NBA championship one day in Cade Cunningham. You need guys like this that are just perfectly complementary. Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. served phenomenally in that role this year, but also ran into walls in the postseason. We're very up and down and rocky. I think you've got to believe Lanier's got a little more upside to potentially help Cade Cunningham get where he hopes to lead this team. Was, what's your comp for Chaz Lanier?
You just dropped his name. I've had Malik Beasley as his comp from day one of this season. I mean, I think that's the exact type of player he's going to be. Wow, look, he's 20 pounds stronger. That's promising to know from a defensive perspective, because I think scouts had questions of who he's going to guard. Also at a 6'9" wingspan, which is awesome for a 6'4" guard. Again, more reason for me to believe that he's going to stick in the league as a 3-and-D type of guard. And this guy, again, just like Beasley, just let him catch and shoot. Just let him run off screens. All he needs is one little inch to knock down jumpers, and I think that's the type of guy that our man right here, Chaz Lanier, is going to be in the NBA.
Gotta love it. Feels good for something good to happen, doesn't it, Cart?
It does feel good. I didn't know it was going to take me to the second round to get emotional, but it feels so good.
All right, next up is the San Antonio Spurs at 38. However, we have received word there is a proposed trade. This 38th pick is about to head to the Indiana Pacers, and the pick is in. That's what I'm hearing. Let's see who the Pacers will be selecting at 38. It's another bucket getter here. The Pacers are taking Kam Jones with the 38th pick of the 2025 NBA draft. Kam Jones out of Marquette, a guy you think back a couple years ago, played next to Tyler Kolek. Many people viewed him as just a shooting specialist, off-ball type. This past year, he really served as Marquette's full-time point guard and became one of the more dynamic score/pass threats in all of college basketball. You see the assist numbers there, nearly 6 assists per game, but the efficiency went nowhere, 48% from the floor. This kid is a decorated individual accomplishment guy from his time at Marquette, and it's going to be interesting to see how it translates at the NBA level, Cart.
Yeah, Kam Jones just has amazing feel and know how to play the game. Truly does. Lefty, he's crafty. You see all these finishes he has at the rim. He has that little deceleration step. He can shoot the ball at the step back. And, in a bigger role this year without playing next to Tyler Kolek, he stepped up to the challenge, and he was better than he was the previous season. Highly productive, All-American. Really love Kam Jones' game. Was, I'm interested to get your take on what grade you would give this pick.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I actually thought Indiana was going to trade up and take another Nembhard brother. But Kam Jones makes plenty of sense. One of the best finishing guards in the country every single year, over 65% at the rim the last 3 seasons. A big-time shot maker. But the reason that we're talking about him as a little borderline first-round pick right outside of 30 is because of the improved playmaking. Not just a scorer, but he averaged over 5 assists per game this year. I think he could play him at either guard position. Scouts were worried about his size, how he was going to measure. I think they were overthinking about it. Just the definition of combo guard, and I think his versatility is going to make it easier for him to fit into any lineup.
Was, let's hear your comp for Kam Jones. Who you got?
How about Malik Monk? I mean, I think that's the type of player. Of course, there's going to be differences, and as we get deeper into the second round, the comps are going to be tougher to make. But I think that's the hope that he could be a combo. Malik Monk was a scorer mostly at Kentucky, and he really evolved into more of a secondary playmaker in the NBA. And I think that's kind of the type of guy that Kam Jones is going to be. He's a shot maker who has this playmaking ability, and somebody who I think can provide a nice little spark off the bench.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Kam Jones in the Indiana system as well, with all that ball movement, all the unselfishness. It's fascinating to sort of remember back to how he blossomed as a playmaker at Marquette this past season, and I think it really will be a seamless fit. He was so unselfish. This could be an awesome opportunity for him to contribute, and a guy that, maybe honestly, you don't want to throw this on a guy. He's not going to replace Tyrese Halliburton, but he's a guy who could somewhat step into that vacancy and at least contribute next year. So I think job well done by the Pacers. Let's move to 39 here. The Toronto Raptors are now on the clock. You think back to the first round. The Raptors took Colin Murray-Boyles with the 9th selection in this draft. They're now back up at 39. We've got Wass's big board here. It's been honestly been being plucked apart here, Was. You've nailed the very first picks here in this second round. So resetting here, Javon Small is now the #1 player available. Tyrese Proctor, Maxime Raynaud, Jameer Watkins, guys that we have discussed. You're even seeing some names like Kobe Brea, Rocco Zikarsky, the Australian center, and then Hunter Salas start to crack the 8, 9, 10 spots on Wass's big board. Cart, we're looking at Toronto right now. Who would be a good fit?
I mean, they look like a team that's right now embracing versatility. They have Scotty Barnes on the team. They draft Colin Murray-Boyles in the first round. There's a couple guys on this board that can do the versatile things. I know Waz spoke earlier about a guy like Jameer Watkins. I don't want to do the thing where I'm going to bring him up on every single pick until he gets picked. But, hey, Maxime Raynaud is still there, if anyone's wondering. I think there's some really good options for Toronto at this pick. I think maybe some front court depth could help them out a little bit, though.
All right, and the pick is in, so we'll see what the Raptors are about to do at 39 momentarily here. Let's find out. Elijah Martin, Gator boys stay hot. The Raptors are taking Elijah Martin with the 39th pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Elijah Martin, Dusty May product from Florida Atlantic. He transfers to Florida for his final year in college, and could you have picked a better transfer? He goes 1 year out, national champion along the way. He was a key piece to Florida's run in the postseason this past year. At times, just a heat check guy that, you know, he would almost make his first 2 or 3 shots, and all of a sudden you look up, he's got 20 points at the end of the game. And other times he's impacting the game without even scoring. I mean, defensively, I thought he was one of the best on-ball defenders on the perimeter in all of college basketball. This is a name I expected to hear tonight. I don't know if I expected to hear it in the 30s, but can't hate on the pick. And you see what Toronto's now doing defensively. I think they've got quite a few options here. Was, what's your grade for Elijah Martin, 39th?
I mean, listen, I love Elijah Martin as a college player. Did I think he was going to go before Maxime Raynaud? It's, again, part of the grading system has to be on, you know, who you left on the board. I think there are better prospects on the board, but I do give Toronto credit for getting the guy they liked. I'm guessing a lot of character evaluation, toughness, the intangible stuff went into this pick. You know, I'll give it a B. Do I think he can carve out an NBA career? Sure, especially if you have a front office that believes in you and gives you an opportunity. But yeah, you nailed all the whole scouting report on him. He's super tough defensively. He's a shot maker. He can finish with explosiveness around the basket. I think the question with him is he's 6'2", and he's not a point guard at all. He's not even a high-level creator. A little bit inconsistent with his shot, but look at those muscles, his strength, his toughness, and again, his shot making. That combination suggests that he could be, you know, a mini 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, Cardi, he's a kid that was fearless at Florida at times. You know, would almost try and poster defenders when you're like, there was nothing even there. So, I don't know. I'm excited about this ad. Again, a little bit surprised to see it in the 30s, but when you start to see the full picture of what Toronto's doing, you can talk yourself in to this being a nice complimentary piece. So, all right, let's move to 40. We've got the Washington Wizards, who are technically on the clock, although there's a proposed trade in place. This pick should go to the New Orleans Pelicans right now. The Pelicans, one of the louder splash-making teams in the NBA draft on night 1. They moved up to select Derek Queen and get him in the mix after adding Jeremiah Fears with all that they've done in the last week on the trade cycle, with Jordan Poole coming to New Orleans as well. It's a whole new look Pelicans team right now. Cart, looking at the big board here, who should the Pelicans add to the mix?
I mean, there's a couple guys, I think Wass brought it up, that maybe went a little bit earlier than you might have thought, which I think leaves some really good options here for them. I'm looking at Tyrese Proctor as maybe like a connector guard that can defend very well. Jeremiah Fears, I think, is going to maybe try to run the show, but putting an older defensive-minded guard next to him, I think, could go a long way, especially next to guys like Jordan Poole. I think Jameer Watkins could fit very well on the wing as being some wing depth behind guys like Trey Murphy as well. I think the Pelicans are in a very good position here, given guys like Jonai Broome and Elijah Martin maybe went a little bit earlier than some may have thought.
All right, we hear that the pick is in, and we are actually going to go to Jake Fischer to help us break the news on what New Orleans is doing at 40. Fish, what's going on?
So this pick, if you guys recall, was part of that deal earlier in the week where the Pelicans sent C.J. McCollum out the door to Washington and brought Jordan Poole, not Jordan Peele, great director, but not a great NBA player. Brought Jordan Peele, oh my God, did it again. Jordan Poole back to New Orleans. So this completes that deal. And now we are, I started breaking Micah Peavy to the Pelicans, number 40. So now we're starting to get into the range here where a lot of these players getting picked in these 40s are going to be teams that are going to be players that are agreeing to two-way contracts. So that's going to be a theme in this next kind of stretch of the second round. But there's also a couple teams that are looking still to find guys on roster spots, particularly Cleveland at 49. So stay tuned for all that.
Interesting. All right. Thank you, Jake Fischer. It is Micah Peavy to the Pelicans at 40. An interesting name here. Certainly a good player. Guy that had a productive college career. A name that, I'll be honest, this is the first guy that's been selected that I wasn't sure we would hear his name come off the board in the NBA draft. So be interested to get Wass's thoughts in just a moment. But, Cart, I know you're very familiar with Micah Peavy. Are you surprised that this is a pick at 40?
You know, I'm not surprised because I think that given Peavy's size and his versatility, I think at a lot of different stops, he was a guy you could put on the wing. He defended at a very high level. I thought that he grew as an offensive player as well. And it's kind of fitting they have the two founding members of Micah Peavy Hive, I feel like, on this couch right now. So I'm not too surprised to see him get picked. I think he does fit some things that the Pelicans might be looking for. I'm interested to get Wass's take on this one and get a grade on this.
Yeah, Peavy's somebody who's kind of risen during the draft process at the Combine. I think teams love the idea of him. You know, it took 5 years for him to become a realistic NBA prospect. Texas Tech, TCU, now Georgetown, but on paper, I mean, you'd be like, why isn't this guy, talked about by more? He's 6'8". He averaged 3.6 assists per game. He shot 40% from three this year. I mean, I think he's got a chance to be a role player. I give this a B+. I think his versatility is very intriguing. He's going to be 24 years old right after the draft. So you're not getting a lot of upside or a runway for upside here. But for a guy that's 6'8", that passes like him, that shoots 40% from three, he shot really well off the dribble this year. Again, for 4 years, he didn't do this stuff. And then in this fifth year, he did, which makes the evaluation a little bit tricky. Was this a fluky season? He played a higher usage role in Georgetown's offense. But I think this late, it's a risk worth taking for a guy with his physical tools, his position, to be able to do the different things that he can do.
Hey, 5 years in college. His first year was at Texas Tech, and he was a very promising role player. You thought he might stay and break out at Texas Tech. He ends up 3 years at TCU, where he did just get incrementally better year by year. Finally, a breakout season in his fifth and final year at Georgetown, averaged 17.2 points per game. So it's been a long journey for Micah Peavy to get to this point, but as you alluded to, Was, a guy that I think some teams fell in love with in the draft cycle as you got to know the kid here. What is your comp for Micah Peavy, Was?
Yeah, don't get too excited. It was Trent Forrest out of Florida State. I mean, again, it's tough to find comps for guys this late in the draft, but it's almost like these are positionless players who could just do a little bit of everything. Sometimes he looks like a guard. Sometimes he looks like a forward. And so, depending on what his role is going to be, and now we know where he's going to be, I think his job is going to just be to kind of morph into whatever the player that particular possession requires. And also a good defender. I think Forrest was a good defender as well. And so I think that's, again, I'm sure a big selling point to moving up to get Peavy here.
All right, thank you, Was. So we are 10 picks through the second round. You've got our recap here. Rashir Fleming went off the board 1. Noah Penda, Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Jonai Broome in the first 5. Adou Thiero to the Lakers. Lanier to our Pistons. Kam Jones, Elijah Martin, Micah Peavy to round it out here. Any major surprises in the first 10 picks to you, Card, or is this all feeling pretty much what you expected thus far?
You know, I expected to see Maxime Raynaud go in these first 10 picks, especially seeing 2 other centers go in Ryan Kalkbrenner and Jonai Broome. I'm just a little bit confused on maybe kind of how other teams view Raynaud. I thought maybe some teams would even be in the market to maybe even try to trade up to get him because they thought he would be gone. So kind of intrigued or confused to see that he was not going in the first 10 picks here.
Yeah, it's hard to start calling things a draft slide when you get late into the second round. I don't think any of the best available were guys we thought would go guaranteed in the first round at this point. So, I expected chaos. I talked about that a lot in night 1. I think from a trade perspective, it has been an entertaining, chaotic draft. But as far as valuable players going way below market value, I don't think we're seeing much of that. I think we're seeing NBA GMs sort of take guys right around where we expect up till this point in the draft. We'll see if that remains the case with the final 20 picks in the 2025 NBA draft. Pick 41 is on the clock. This is the Golden State Warriors. However, this pick is going to go to the Phoenix Suns in a proposed trade. Again, we already talked about the Suns a little bit earlier tonight. This is a Suns team that we saw make splashes on night 1 of the NBA draft, and we saw them trade up to get Rashir Fleming with the first pick in the second round. Carr, what are you seeing as the Phoenix Suns' biggest need now as they're back in the clock at 41?
I think they could use some guys that can contribute on the wing. I think they have a plethora of shooting guards. I think they did good by getting guys for the front court with Fleming and Man in earlier this round. I think maybe some wing depth could help them out. I'm looking at Watson's big board over there. Jameer Watkins possibly a pick here. Maybe Kobe Sanders as well. Some guys, some wings with really good size, really good versatility. I think could really go a long way for the Suns and kind of filling out that forward spot for them.
I'd like to disagree with you quickly, Card. I think they've got more than enough on the wing, my friend. I think they need a pure point guard. And I'm looking at this big board right now. Javon Small, Tyrese Proctor, 2 guys that can run the show, be a little more of a floor general for Phoenix. I think they'd be well served to go the point guard spot. It's you versus me, my friend. Let's see who wins. In fact, Jake Fischer's going to give us some intel. Let's throw it to Fish for what's going on with the Phoenix Suns at 41.
It is Kobe Brea. As you guys said, this is part of the dealing that Phoenix did to get up from 59 and 52. And then obviously they moved again to get to 31 to take Rashir Fleming. So this kind of completes Phoenix's pretty wild, busy draft. And because of this pick, I'm waiting for further confirmation right now. But I've been told that this is going to be Maxime Raynaud at number 42, barring a last-minute change here for Sacramento in this next pick. But I don't have that confirmed yet. I'm letting it all loose exclusively for our watchers right here on the Bleacher Report app. But that is what we're waiting to find out. I think for Phoenix too, they had selected enough big men already with getting Mark Williams, getting Kamal Malawach, having Rashir Fleming at the top. I think this is the shooting, like you guys were talking about, and just the overall, other parts of the roster that they needed to address. But I think overall, you got to give the Suns a lot of credit for their wheeling and dealing and targeting guys that they wanted throughout this draft.
All right, thank you, Jake. It has been an active 2 nights for the Phoenix Suns at minimum. For those of you keeping track at home, that's 1 point Carter, 0 points me. This is also 1 point Mark Pope. The first Kentucky Wildcat in the Mark Pope era has been drafted. It's Kobe Brea. This is, the first time since roughly a decade and a half that we haven't seen a Kentucky Wildcat taken in the first round of the NBA draft, but we didn't have to wait long on night 2 before the sharpshooter Kobe Brea goes off the board to the Suns. Was, I'm throwing it to you next. What would you grade Kobe Brea at 41?
I've always said from the beginning, even early in the season, Brea is going to be a second-round value pick because he has a specialty, and that specialty, I believe, should translate based on the size that he has in the position, And the numbers he puts up from behind the arc, which are outrageous. Going back to Dayton, the year before, he shot 100 of 201 from three. I mean, that's like unbelievable efficiency. And then this year, 44%, which is like a drop-off on even more volume against tougher opponents in the SEC. He's one of the best shooters I've seen in college basketball in the last handful of years. But I say this is an A. And, you know, some of the guys who put up his numbers, let me see if I could pull this up. 6'6" guys who shot over 42% on 700 career attempts. Most of them carved out NBA careers. It was Allen Houston, Dennis Scott, Jason Capono, Kyle Korver, Sam Hauser, Steve Novak. I think even if you look at the bottom of that list, guys like Hauser and Novak, like there's no doubt in my mind that Brea can become one of those specialist shooters. So to get that type of value in the second round, I mocked him at 41. This is exactly where I thought he would go, of course, to a different team, but it still worked out. Now, I think this is a good pick, and I knew that somebody would go after him around here.
Sum it up quickly. That boy don't miss, Greg. He truly doesn't. When you say elite shooter, you don't want to use the word elite lightly with him. He has shown he can do it over a really long, successful college career. Was, I'm interested to get your player comp for the 6'6" elite shooter is Kobe Brea.
Yeah, this has got to be like Duncan Robinson, I think, is who I use for him, which is pretty obvious. And again, you can throw out any of the names I just threw out there. Hauser, Novak. I know he's have a highlight of him putting the ball on the floor, but he's not going to do that in the NBA. His job in the NBA, and wow, look, here you go. Duncan Robinson putting the floor in the NBA. His job is going to be to run off screens, catch and shoot, and that's it. You know, he's not going to be a high-level defender. He's not going to give you any assists. He's not going to give you much rim pressure. But with that shooting stroke, which is so clean, and with that size, I don't see why he can't do something similar to what Duncan Robinson has done for Miami.
Sometimes all you have to do is be an elite specialist. That's how I'm sitting on the Bleacher Report couch right now. I'll put myself up there with anyone on earth at throwing it to Jonathan Wasserman. And it's gotten me this far. And Kobe Brea making shots has gotten him this far. 41st to the Phoenix Suns. Let's reset here. We're going 42nd pick in just a moment. It will be the Sacramento Kings making this selection via the Chicago Bulls. And as Fish just alluded to, this may be Maxime Raynaud. Maybe the most mentioned name on night 2 of the NBA draft for us thus far. I think we came into night 2 saying this might be the best player available coming in. And as of right now, he is still available. Let's see if this changes momentarily, Cart. But this will be an emotional moment for you with one of your favorite players being taken.
Yeah, I promise I'm not trying to fill a quota tonight by mentioning Maxime Raynaud, but I do think that looking at this spot, he could fit with the Kings next to Domantas Sabonis. They could also use a point guard as well. They had Malik Monk taking that role last year. It'll be interesting to see where they go at this spot.
All right, so the pick is in, I am being told, and I believe the Sacramento Kings have fulfilled the prophecy. They have selected Maxime Raynaud, 42nd overall in the NBA draft. I'll give you a little behind the scenes here. We were going to throw to Jake Fischer to give some commentary on how this pick came to be, but I was told that he is on the phone. So, little spoiler for you, there's going to be some more chaos tonight. There may be more teams on the phone with Jake Fischer. Stay tuned. But for now, let's talk Maxime Raynaud. And, Cart, it only feels right that I let you speak about the big that you know and love.
Highly productive, great size, 20 points a game at Stanford, one of the better players in the ACC. You see he has the versatility to put the ball on the floor. I think he's underrated passing as well, provides the rim protection. You watch his tape, and you see a first-round big. You see a big that a lot of NBA teams, I think, would salivate at having that type of skill set. It's interesting to see him go at the spot. This feels like a really good value spot for them. Was, I'm interested to get your grade and your thoughts on this.
Listen, this is surprising just based on the NBA buzz he generated after the NBA Combine. You look at my board, I had him, I think, in the mid-30s, so it's not far off from my evaluation. But at this point of the draft, yeah, 7'1" guy who made 67 threes and averaged 20 and 10. That just doesn't happen. I said it earlier on the stream. There's only 2 players in the history of college basketball that put up those numbers. This is an A-, of course, this late in the draft, and certainly a risk worth taking. You're buying the three-point shooting. I mean, that's what has to really stick for him to be a valuable NBA player. I don't know if He's going to command the post touches. He's probably not going to be a major defensive presence. He doesn't have any length at his position. In fact, it's the same wingspan as his height. But offensively, he's incredibly skilled. And, we see these highlights of him putting the ball on the floor and spinning and using both hands around the post. His skill level is off the charts. I think the question scouts have, and by the way, I reached out to a couple teams in the last couple of minutes asking why he slipped, and nobody knows why. I think it's just people didn't buy the full offense translating, and they question his defense at center. But, very high-skill player and somebody who you hope can stretch the floor from the 5 position.
It is one of those picks where, the upside is there, that if it hits, we will look back 4 or 5 years from now thinking, wow, how did he fall into the 40s? For the Kings, it's their only selection thus far in the NBA draft. We talked a little bit night one about how Fish reported they were trying to move up, potentially targeting Jace Richardson. In the end, that deal did not come together. And in the end, Maxime Raynaud is the consolation prize for the Kings, although what a good consolation prize Maxime Raynaud is at 42. Was, what's your comp for Maxime Raynaud?
I'm going with Quentin Post. Early in the season, it was Alex Len. And by the way, Len was a great prospect coming out of Maryland. But Quentin Post, I think, is how his game translates to the next level. He's not going to be a guy who is a 2010 guy who's demanding the ball around the post. I think he's going to be valued because he's 7'1", and he shoots threes. And so I think, again, there's translatability questions about how quick he is off the dribble. Is he going to be able to continue to do that at the next level? I'm a little bit skeptical, but I do buy the shot, or at least I'm, for a mid-second round pick, I think it's worthy of taking him for that shot. And I think that's where he's going to find value. That's how he's going to earn his minutes. If he could do what Post does for the Golden State Warriors, which is finish around the basket and stretch the floor from deep.
All right, so with that, we move to the 43rd pick in the NBA draft. It will be the Utah Jazz on the clock. However, this pick will make its way to the Washington Wizards. The Wizards, who have been on the clock technically multiple times in this draft. However, due to trades, Trey Johnson is the only acquisition thus far for the Washington Wizards. So they will now look to bolster this class a little bit. Looking at this big board right now, I keep mentioning we've got some guards at the top: Javon Small, Tyrese Proctor, Jamir Watkins, a name we've mentioned a ton, quite a bit. And then we are starting to see a few more international prospects become good value selections at this point in the draft. Rocco Zikarsky, a guy that we know the Lakers have been rumored to be involved with, if not targeting. And then Lachlan Olbrich, another front court player from Australia, just cracked Wass's top 10. Cart, quickly, what would you do here if you were drafting on behalf of Washington?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go, because this team isn't necessarily trying to just take the NBA by storm next year. They have the pieces to, I think, take some time, maybe take a swing on a guy here, but there's also some players they could go after that could contribute right away. Tyrese Proctor could give them some good stuff on the wing in the guard position. Jamir Watkins as well. A guy like Bryce Williams or Hunter Salas, too, who I think scored at a very high level at the college level. They just got rid of guys like Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole. Fisher's taking control of me right now. I think they'll have a good chance to pick up some talent on the wing at this spot.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right, let's see what the Washington Wizards will do here at 43. The pick is in, and it is Jamir Watkins. The Wizards will select Jamir Watkins with the 43rd pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Raynaud to Watkins back-to-back feels like back-to-back phenomenal value picks here in the 40s. These are guys that you could have told me came off the board. Honestly, late in the first round, I wouldn't have said it was all that crazy. Instead, they fall to the 40s. But I think Watkins, as you look at what Washington is doing, to your point about the roster cart, he may have an opportunity immediately to step into that rotation and impact things on the floor for the Washington Wizards. Was, what would you grade this pick for Jamir Watkins?
Ooh, I like this pick. Like I said earlier in the stream, I'm a big fan of Watkins. I love what Washington has done this draft. One of my favorite drafts so far. I love the archetype. It's a very enticing archetype as a 6'7" guy who will play point guard, who will plow through contact and put pressure on the rim. He's got some mid-range scoring ability. He's tough at the basket. He can guard multiple positions. This is an A+ to me this late in the draft. And again, his role is going to be a little bit different when he gets to the NBA, and I think teams understand that he's going to end up having to become a better spot-up player because of Florida State. He was the focal point of that offense. But still, even if we're talking about a second-unit guy, he does a lot on the floor at both ends. And the big knock was his shooting in this year, 1.7 threes per game. I'm not worried about the percentage. He's become a shot maker. He's not a shooter, but he can make those shots. And that's enough for me for a guy with his physical profile who, again, is going to put pressure on the rim, who's going to set teammates up, and somebody who I think can guard positions 2, 3, and 4.
Love watching Jamir Watkins last season. Filled up the stat sheet. Also just visually watching him. He has the game and I think the body to be a perfect NBA role player and be good and successful in that role. Was, I'm interested to get a player comparison for Jamir Watkins.
I think I went with Caris LeVert here. Yeah, listen, there's obviously differences, and I think Watkins is a much stronger type of player, but their skill sets offensively were pretty similar. These are 6'6", 6'7" wings. LeVert coming out of Michigan played a lot of point guard, played a lot of point wing, and I think that that's something that Watkins has shown he can do. But he also can score, again, from behind the arc, at the rim, a little bit in the mid-range, just a very versatile offensive player. And, I think Watkins has a little bit more defensive upside, and LeVert was probably more skilled offensive player, but I think you get the idea in terms of archetype.
Yeah, totally see the vision there. One thing that just excites me after looking at what Washington has done in this draft, I just want to see Trey Johnson and Jamir Watkins play one-on-one. I'd love to see Watkins just try and frustrate. One of the best pure offensive bucket-getting ISO wings against one of, I think, the most competitive defensive prospects, a guy that can guard a bunch of different positions with size, the way Jamir Watkins can. At minimum, those two being able to get reps against each other immediately as rookies in Washington is very exciting for me. So good job, Wizards. It feels weird liking what the Wizards are doing, but I'm in on this draft right now. Let's move to the 44th pick. We've got the Oklahoma City Thunder. The champs are back on the clock here. Cart, what are you looking at for OKC here?
So it's going to be interesting with the Thunder because, like Fish mentioned yesterday, their roster, honestly, doesn't have many holes. They have a lot of pieces on that team. Their starters are set. They have a really good bench. There's a reason they were the champs. I'd be interested to see maybe if they dip into the overseas pool here, looking at Wasserman's big board, maybe going to some overseas guys. Rocco Zakarski's there. I think that could bring maybe some center depth to the team, but I think possibly you could see them select a pick that maybe if they had the opportunity, they can stash them overseas for a year or two.
Doesn't this feel like Bogle-Jub Markovich right now? That just feels like the OKC pick,
I close
right?
my eyes and I see that on the back of a Thunder jersey, and he's like number 49.
Right. Well, let's see. In fact, Jake Fischer has the news on this. Let's throw it to the fishbowl. Jake, what will the Oklahoma City Thunder do here at 44?
The Oklahoma City Thunder will select Brooks Barnhizer out of Northwestern. Shout out to the big man, or sorry, the small forward, excuse me. The Thunder, as you guys mentioned, they have a total roster crunch here. They entered the draft after winning the championship on last Sunday night. Again, congratulations to the Thunder, with already a full roster spot. So that's part of why they moved out of 24 last night to Sacramento. Of course, they took Thomas Sorber with 15, so now there's some math, not mathing here, right? Like they're gonna have basically 17 guys on contracts. There was some talk about the Thunder potentially using this pick to be a draft and stash guy like you guys were talking about. So something is not adding up. Like, this is an incomplete situation. Of course, this is a good problem to have for the Thunder to have won the title, have a deep, deep roster full of guys that they are potentially going to have to figure out some stuff with. I think A.J. Mitchell could be potentially reverted back to a two-way contract. Maybe Brooks is a two-way contract guy. I would think that's probably what's happening here. Like I said, in this range outside of a few spots, like Cleveland coming up at 49 is definitely a spot that's going to have a real second-round pick exception roster spot. This is probably a two-way deal. And Osman Dieng, the lottery pick from a few years back, is definitely someone that teams are talking about the Thunder gauging his trade value, and maybe he could be a wave candidate depending on how things go in the next little stretch here. So that's my latest on OKC. Back to y'all.
All right. Thank you, Jake. You've been crushing it on night 2 of the NBA draft for us. Brooks Barnhizer is a phenomenal college basketball player. This is a kid who deserves a chance to crack an NBA roster. You didn't see this because we threw it to the fishbowl, but the moment that this pick was announced, Carter and I in studio, I think our jaws just hit the floor. I mean, we're guys that watch a ton of Big Ten basketball. We're well familiar with Brooks Barnhizer. I have an infatuation with his game. I did not expect to hear his name called tonight, certainly not at 44 to the champs. But now that I'm thinking of it or just trying to break his game down, I mean, this is a tough kid. This is a kid who got his teeth knocked out twice this year at Northwestern and just kept playing through it. Ultimately, his season was cut short to a season-ending injury. But this is a kid, after Bowie left Northwestern, he took on the burden of being the best player and keeping that team competitive in a loaded conference. I just can't really fathom that that's who the Thunder have decided to go with. Carter, are you as shocked as I am?
I am shocked because I love Brooks Barnhizer, but I did not see the Thunder necessarily looking for a guy who, great size, has good size at the wing position, all Big Ten defensive team like we saw. Just didn't really expect them to go with that vision and that type of player at this point in the draft. Was, I'm interested to get your thoughts on the Thunder picking Brooks Barnhizer at this spot.
A little bit of a scoop here. I've had to hold this information in for a couple weeks. The Thunder made him a promise a couple weeks ago, and his camp was undecided on whether to take it because they kind of wanted a better situation where he'd have more of an opportunity. But Barnhizer is, like you guys, there's not much I can add to what you guys have said. I've clearly seen him play. Super tough. I'm giving this a B+. I'm a fan. In fact, I made a pitch during the season on Twitter saying more NBA teams need to be looking at him. Of course, we'd like to see his three-point percentage be up a little bit, but at 6'6", again, he does a little bit of everything. 8.5 rebounds, over 4 assists per game, 2.3 steals, 1.1 blocks. He just finds a way to get it done, and he plays at 150%. A very tough player inside the arc, who'll pass, who'll defend, who'll play through contact, who'll make tough shots in the mid-range. But Oklahoma City had their eyes on Barnhizer weeks ago, offered him a promise. They declined it originally, and it looks like they decided to take him anyway with him on the board.
Wow. All right. So a little bit of a scoop there. Actually, let's give you the credit for that, Was. That's a big scoop. Brooks Barnhizer scoops in the year of our Lord 2025. That's what we live for. Ultimately, it comes to fruition for Brooks, and I mean, look, get drafted 44th. That's a win for him and his camp, even if they're questioning the situation. So I'll be rooting for this. Again, it's hard not to fall in love with the kid who plays as hard as he does, but just coming off of that injury, surprised to hear that name. Good job to Oklahoma City keeping that so under wraps until they actually were on the clock at the 44th pick. All right, we're going to move to 45 here. The Chicago Bulls are on the clock, I believe. There's a proposed trade that will send this pick from Chicago to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And, Cart, what should the Timberwolves do?
Yeah, interesting to see kind of where they go here. They added a front court player in Joan Behringer in the first round. Could possibly maybe look to add another one. There's also a lot of good guards and wings still available on Wass's big board as well. I do think there are some pretty good options for them here. I'm interested to see if maybe Tyrese Proctor comes off the board here.
Yeah, I don't want to call it a slide for Proctor, but we are seeing this just move a little bit at this point as he sits atop Wass's big board. And I believe we have word that the pick is in here for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's see who the Timberwolves will select at 45. And it's going to be Rocco Zikarsky, the center from Australia. Okay, we heard rumor earlier today that the Los Angeles Lakers were possibly targeting Rocco Zikarsky in the middle of the second round. Instead, it appears that Rocco will make his way to Minnesota. You're seeing some clips right here from Rocco at the Combine. He is a 7'4" center, as big as nearly any player in this draft. But a guy that has some potential from a skill set perspective to step outside and make some three-point shots. This is a kid who has been on international radars for quite a few years in terms of one day making it over to the NBA, and that prophecy has been fulfilled tonight as he goes 45th in this draft. Cart, what do you think of Rocco Zikarsky?
Yeah, I mean, you can't teach size. And at a 7'4", you look at a guy who can have some elite length that can affect shots. He's shown the ability to shoot the ball like you saw in those clips there. He's a guy that I think you need size in the NBA. You need versatility. You need guys that can move very well. And I think Rocco is a player that can do that. He's been on NBA radars for a long, long time. And, you know, I think that the Timberwolves have done a good job with bigs as well. So I think, you know, being under the tutelage of guys like Rudy Gobert, I think could also go a long way for Rocco Zikarsky. Was, I'm interested to get your grade on this pick.
Zikarsky is somebody I had in the top 20 entering the season. Of course, he barely played in the NBL and then got hurt in January. I've never seen him play live. So a lot of the time with him, I refer to people that get to see him on a regular basis. I guess this is a B. The people that I talk to around the NBA are just not in love with him. They've questioned his maturity and his mobility for an NBA player. But again, he's 18 years old. He was a very high-level youth player, somebody who everybody expected at least a year ago to be, you know, in the first-round conversation and regarded as one of these very high-profile prospects. It didn't happen this year. He took a backseat and then got hurt. But again, like you guys said, he is incredibly big and has a lot of defensive potential, at least around the basket. There's just nothing too exciting about his offensive game. And I think the flashes that we did see this year of him defending away from the basket were not very promising. He looked a little heavier than he did in years past. And so I think there's a lot of translation questions. There's a lot of questions about what's his upside at the NBA level. But at 45, again, I'm not going to nitpick. He's 18 years old. He can improve his conditioning. He can become more mature. He's an interesting prospect, but it doesn't sound like, you know, the Timberwolves are going to see results anytime soon.
Berenjay and Zikarsky from Minnesota, another team, I mentioned it at the top of the show, clearly had a vision of what they were after here. Strengthen up this front court, get you some additional options to pair with Anthony Edwards, and they've done that officially with Rocco Zikarsky in the fold. All right, we're to the 46th pick in the draft. It's the Orlando Magic on the clock. However, I believe this pick is actually going to go to the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics have selected Amari Williams with the 46th pick in the draft. Okay, a little center run here midway through the second round. Amari Williams out of Kentucky began his college career at Drexel, 1 year under Mark Pope, and it was the best that we've seen him look in a college basketball uniform. This is a kid, I think he could shock some people in the NBA. This is one of those guys I would put in my umbrella of players I believe will outperform their draft spot here. You don't find many centers as good as he is defensively that can also be used as an offensive hub. He's a great passer, averaged over 3 assists a game in his 1 year at Kentucky. Part of that was the Mark Pope system, which is certainly player-friendly to players of all shapes and sizes. But this is a kid, you can sometimes question the motor, you can sometimes question how engaged he can be on a possession-by-possession basis. But when he is at his best, there are not many more big men in all of college basketball last season and in this draft class in general that can impact the game on both sides the way Amari Williams did last year. Was, I'll throw it straight to you. What's your grade for Amari Williams?
I like Williams. He's somebody who kind of grew on me as the season went on, and when I went back and did some reviewing of tape, which I tend to do when there's downtime between April and June, I'm like, man, I think a lot of people missed on this guy. He was actually invited to the draft tonight. He didn't go. He had some other plans to be with family, but he knew he was getting picked. A 7-footer that can grab and go in transition, a very good passer. He's not going to offer a lot of scoring at the next level, but at his size and his athleticism with the ability to finish and pass and defend, this is an A- for me. I really like this pick. I think he's a very interesting big. He's not as simple as just a catch and finish guy. He brings some versatility. I think if he gets a chance to handle the ball a little bit in the open floor in the NBA, teams are going to be very surprised. Defenses will be surprised in what he could do.
Yeah, one of the big things about Amari Williams playing for Kentucky and Mark Pope is that he was somewhat of a offense starter, doing dribble handoff stuff, being able to be a guy that kind of starts the offense. I think he will shock people with his skill set at the NBA level, which has me intrigued to what his comp might be Was.
I'm going with Isaiah Hartenstein. I think that's the type of role he's going to play. And Hartenstein, is obviously not known for scoring. He's known for bringing defensive toughness, finishing, but also, at least when he was with the Knicks or even earlier, he was a very good passer. Somebody you can put at the top of the arc and facilitate and be a playmaking hub and find those cutters and find those open shooters. I think that's a very valuable, underrated part of Amari Williams' game. So I think that if he's going to carve out a role, a good guy for him to mirror and emulate is going to be Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah, we've seen some teams, even in this second round, which is supposed to fly by a little bit quicker, we've seen some teams milk the clock, maybe even go past their allotted time slot. I swear, the Celtics at 46, I think that was the quickest pick of the draft. I mean, we were not even through announcing the Rocco Zikarsky news to Minnesota, and Boston had made the pick. Clearly, it seems they liked Amari Williams. They were ready to make that move very swiftly when it came time, and we'll see what Boston's doing. With no Jason Tatum to begin next season, again, they could go in a lot of different directions, but they've added some pieces this draft that make me think this team is looking to stay competitive next year. So we'll see what happens. For now, we're to the 47th pick in the NBA draft, and it is the Milwaukee Bucks on the clock. And I believe the pick is in for Milwaukee. Let's see if we've got it. I think it's going to be Bogoljub Markovic, a player that we just named just a few minutes ago. He was 7th on Wass's big board just a few picks ago. And this is a kid, we talk about international prospects. This is a kid who really did get a lot of run. He played 29 minutes a game for his club overseas last year. This is not one of those developmental pieces that, just hasn't gotten the reps, but shows you some upside in the combine. This is a player who has been productive and has gotten opportunities. Car, talk to me on Bogoljub Markovic.
Yeah, to your point, you see some of these overseas guys, they're kind of upside picks. They don't necessarily get the chance to play sometimes, playing for bigger clubs, but Markovic is not one of those guys. He has the tape. You see he was able to be productive for his club team. KK Mega's a very, very successful team overseas. He's got some size. He's got some versatility. And he's probably a guy that, honestly, I know he's picked by the Bucks, probably watched a lot of Giannis coming up, given the size and the versatility that he can bring. I kind of like this pick for the Bucks. Watts, I'm interested to get your thoughts on it.
I've seen Markovic live at Eurocamp. I saw him live at the Nike Hoop Summit. He looks better on tape than he does in person because he's so thin and he's not an explosive athlete. But his skill set for a guy who's 6'11" in socks is very intriguing. I talked to a team in the 50s, and I asked them, do you think Markovic will be there for you? And they said, no way. He almost made it there. This is an A- this late in the draft, a 6'11" guy who can handle in transition, who shot 39% from downtown. He's a very good passer, scores in the post. The big question with Markovic is physicality, and can he handle it in the NBA?
And the leader in the clubhouse for best name in this draft class, Cart, right?
Yeah, I mean, the nickname opportunities are massive. We're going to go with Bogo. We're going to go with Jub. I mean, it's really there for the take, and I'm interested to see where that
based on how Wass talks about his frame, maybe it's just Bogo stick right now. If he's that thin, we'll see.
We got to work on that.
I'm sorry. I thought that was a good one. Okay, to 48, we've got the Memphis Grizzlies on the clock. This pick comes to them from Golden State, but this will go to the Grizz, and I'm getting word that the pick is in. Let's see what Memphis will do at 48. In fact, let's go to Fish on this one. Jake Fischer, what's happening at 48?
What's up, guys? It is Javon Small here, the guard out of West Virginia, and I am waiting for confirmation about number 49, but last I was told it is going to round out the Brotherhood with Tyrese Proctor going 49th. That is what I'm waiting for further confirmation for. I think ultimately with Small, he was being talked about as high as those two Charlotte picks at number 33 and 34. So I think once Sion James was the guy at 33, that might have indicated some of his fall here. But yeah, I'm getting confirmation. It is Tyrese Proctor at number 49 to Cleveland. Remember, this was a spot that the Cavs were looking to find someone to be on a second-round pick exception. Cleveland having paid a lot of money out the door now already to Darius Garland, to Donovan Mitchell, extending Evan Mobley. They are up against tax apron restrictions. They're going to be a tax team for the foreseeable future here, as the Cavaliers, with Boston having just fire-sold Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and who knows what else could potentially still come. There's some other tricky things that Boston's been up to behind the scenes, trying to figure out ways to trim their tax bill. Cleveland's going to have those exact type of considerations moving forward, as they want to be the top team in the Eastern Conference moving forward. So right now, to lock in someone on a multi-year deal, that's what I've got from multiple sources with the situation. That is not only someone that they think can play for them right now, Tyrese Proctor, in their rotation, but this is going to benefit Cleveland in not just this season, but the long haul too. Locking him in to a multi-year deal at the second-round pick exception, it will really help the Cavaliers' overall accounting as they try to compete in the Eastern Conference with all those tax restrictions that the Cavs don't want to see themselves in a position where Boston's at now. All these teams, Indiana, I was trying to jump in at a certain point, but you guys were just doing such a great job. I didn't want to interrupt you. At 38, the Pacers ended up, coming away with Kam Jones, right? Like that Pacers movement, if you recall, they had the 23rd pick in last night's draft, which, ended up being one of the buzziest things where New Orleans jumped up with Atlanta. The Pacers essentially moved back, 15 spots to get someone that could potentially be a rotation piece for them too, in a second-round deal, while Indiana might be one of the more intriguing free agency situations upcoming here, because they've got to re-sign Miles Turner, but who knows exactly how rich the Pacers are going to be willing to spend money, being that Tyrese Halliburton could be out for much of the year. So that will do it for this latest update. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Jake. Wow, okay, a lot going on here. This is the NBA Draft, presented by Bleacher Report, of course. Javon Small, just an awesome player. In college last season, there was so much on his plate at West Virginia. This kid's an elevator, and what I mean by that is when he needs to step up, when it's a big game, bright lights, primetime type competition level at its highest, he shows out, and he's competitive, and he has this fire within him that is just really fun to watch, quite frankly. You pair him with Cedric Howard. I mean, Memphis just got two guys that fit the DNA of the Memphis Grizzlies that we've grown up with in the last 20 years. Was, what's your grade for Javon Small at 48?
A+. One of my favorite sleeper prospects in the draft. I think the only reason why he wasn't talked about more is because of his size and athleticism. This late, I'm not going to nitpick that. And I think for a ball handler, skill is way more important. Feel and toughness is way more important. 19 points a game, 5.6 assists, 1.5 steals. He made 2.5 threes a game. 88% from the free throw line. Like, statistically, he did everything, and the eye test to me backs it up. Super creative, tough shot maker, strong around the basket. I love his game.
All right, we are going to go to 49 now. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers on the clock, and I believe the pick is already in. Jake Fischer nailed this. It is Duke's Tyrese Proctor, who will go to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not only will he go there, he will sign a multi-year deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers. At this point, Cart, I'm wondering how deep we have to go down the Duke roster to figure out where the Duke draft picks end, but Proctor to Cleveland feels like a pretty darn good fit to me with what he can bring to a team that has visions of competing for a championship next year.
Yeah, I love the fit. Also, I feel sorry for other college basketball coaches that have to recruit against John Shire and Duke when he can go and tell recruits that if you play at Duke, you're going to get drafted. But Tyrese Proctor, I think, just brings a certain role that is clear in the NBA. He improved as a shooter. He was able to play off ball with a lot of other Duke players this year. And then defensively, he just didn't get enough credit. He was some nights put on the best player. I remember the UNC game. They put him on R.J. Davis, and R.J. Davis was seeing about 5 Tyrese Proctors, it felt like. I think he's a clear role for Cleveland. I think it's great for him to get a multi-year deal as well. Was, I'm interested to get your thoughts and grade on this pick.
This is Nay. I like Proctor, not as a lead guard, not as a lottery pick, first-round type guy, but in a team where he could just go in and play to his strengths as a shot maker. I compare him to Landry Shamet. I don't see why he can't be that same type of shot maker, shooter specialist, but who could also handle the ball and make some decisions. I think this is too far for him to drop, and a perfect spot for him to just play to his strengths as a specialist.
All right, let's go to pick 50 here. It's the New York Knicks who are on the clock. Cart, what do the Knicks need?
I mean, look, they have their stars in place. They're trying to get back in a wide-open East next year. There's some good talent on the board here. They could go with some scoring, some bench punch, obviously. A lot of guys played a lot of minutes last year, so I think depth would be big for the Knicks as you look across the rest of the Eastern Conference. We looked at the Pacers this year. One of the big pieces that helped them out is that they had a lot of really good depth on their team. I think the Knicks wore down a little bit towards the end of this year. So I think looking at, Wass's big board, a lot of guys on here that could bring some depth. I'm looking at Bryce Williams, Hunter Sallis, even. It'll be interesting to see where they go at the spot.
Cart, how do you feel about playing mind games?
I don't like playing them because I usually lose them.
Yeah, I love playing them because I usually win them. And I'm looking at a name on Wass's big board right now that I think would be a mind game pick for the New York Knicks.
Ooh, a little brotherly rivalry?
Could we take a Nembhard brother, and could we just basically throw some shots at the Indiana Pacers, two teams that I think obviously Halliburton needs to come back healthy, but I mean, could we basically just be a thorn in the Pacers' side after the way the Pacers got the best of the Knicks this year?
I call that an off-season win. It's not all about basketball sometimes. Sometimes you got to win off the court. The mind games are huge. I kind of like it too. The fit would work.
Well, I'm sold. I think I'm intrigued here. We've got 11 picks left in this draft here as we sit at pick 50. I'm looking at Wass's big board right now. A lot of guards on this list. Ryan Nembhard was one of the very productive college players last year that we are hoping gets selected tonight. Mark Sears, another All-American level player in college that could certainly contribute from a shot-making perspective. We talked about Kobe Sanders at the top of the show. Bryce Williams, Hunter Sallis, Tamar Bates, even another guard with some size that could contribute. It feels like we've had quite a few flurries of front court selections in this draft, and no shots intended at Andrew Carr or Lachlan Olbrich here, but I think the cupboard's getting a little bare in terms of front court prospects at this point. I would not be surprised if we see a run of guards to end this draft. I'm hearing the pick is in for the New York Knicks at 50, and we're going to throw it back to Jake Fischer. Jake, what do you got from the Knicks?
I'm still waiting to find out exactly what the Clippers gave up here, but the Clippers are moving up one spot with New York at 50 to take Kobe Sanders. So I would assume it's just cash, because to move up just one pick in the 50s isn't exactly a huge leap. But this is the pick, and we'll see where New York goes at 51 now. Maybe they keep moving down. I'm waiting for the word, but that is what we've got for you at this moment.
All right, thank you, Jake. This is the Los Angeles Clippers, who have selected Kobe Sanders with the 50th pick in the draft. Again, we talked about Kobe just briefly at the top of the show in terms of guys with high upside that we think could be long-term value picks in the second round. Kobe Sanders, just an electric watch when he gets going. He's unguardable with the size that he's got. He's a guy that I think will have to play some wing in the NBA unless he really becomes a primary ball handler, but no reason to believe he can't do that given his frame and skill set. Was, what's the grade for Kobe Sanders to the Clippers at 50?
This is an A for me. Every time I have to give a sleepers list, Kobe Sanders' name is on it. I think at 50 you have to take a chance on a 6'9" wing who averaged 4.5 assists per game and scores from 3 levels. There's too much offensive upside here. I know he's not a great athlete. He's not going to be a lockdown defender, but he can score in a lot of different ways, and to have that type of size, I guess he's probably 6'7" in socks, but still, a jumbo wing that can score in a variety of different ways inside the arc, has 3-point range, and was a big-time playmaker for Nevada. I think you have to take that chance this late.
Yeah, really good to see Kobe Sanders go here. I think he does provide that upside. And, I think on the wing there for the Clippers, obviously they have Kawhi Leonard in the fold. They have Norman Powell too. But Kobe Sanders, frame, everything else about him, I think brings a good spot for
them. And a fun watch. Just a super fun watch.
Really fun watch.
All right, so we believe at 51 this pick will end up going to the Knicks. While we await confirmation for that, let's just take a look back at the last 10 picks of this draft. Kobe Brea, Maxime Raynaud, Jameer Watkins, 3 guys that we were screaming about the value of atop Wass's big board. Brooks Barnhizer was our audible gasp moment here, but then we got the scoop that Brooks got a promise from the Thunder at 44. Rocco Zikarsky, 45. Amari Williams, Bogoljub Markovic, Javon Small, Tyrese Proctor, and Kobe Sanders to round out the last 10 picks of this draft. Looking back at that group, Cart, what stands out as a moment you'll remember from this group of picks?
I think it's Javon Small. Obviously, the Grizzlies go with Cedric Coward in the first round, but Javon Small is just such an elite competitor, man. I mean, every big game I watched last year, I remember him playing in Fog Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas. He took that challenge. That's one of the hardest places to win in college basketball. And you think to, like, what makes Grizzly fans tick, it's like that grit and grind basketball. I feel like the competition and the competitive players that they've added in this draft kind of fits in the mold that, you know, they were very successful. And I think Memphis fans are going to love Javon Small.
It is really fun to, like, step back after you watch 50 picks happen in the NBA draft and be reminded that NBA franchises have archetypes. Sometimes they have DNA. The Grizzlies are tough. The Warriors have historically been about shooting and shot making. The Brooklyn Nets apparently are about confusion and overpassing, but it's just sort of fun to watch that play out in real time. All right, we're back to 51 here, the final 10 picks of the NBA draft. And again, this is technically the Clippers on the clock. This is going to go to the Knicks, barring another last-second move here as this pick is made at 51. So we were alluding to this before. I was pitching a mind game with Ryan Nembhard. If they want to go a more traditional route and maybe just try and improve their franchise and not play a mind game card, who should the Knicks target here?
I mean, Mark Sears, I think, is a player that was highly productive that they could take at this spot. Also, Mark Sears probably watches a lot of Jalen Brunson film. I think that'd be good for them to get some guard depth outside of campaign behind them. So maybe they go Mark Sears here.
That is a nice little thought process. Mark Sears and Jalen Brunson had some similarities in terms of college players. Okay, the pick is in. It's going to be Mohamed Diawara, the French forward at 51. Okay, interesting. Was, I want to go straight to you on this. Mo Diawara, what's your grade for the Knicks taking Mo Diawara with the 51st pick in the NBA draft?
Yeah, I'm assuming this means they didn't find anybody that they loved, and they're going to probably try and stash Diawara. He played for Cholet overseas. Listen, he's 6'8". He's a pretty good athlete. You know, he finishes plays. He can make open shots. That's kind of been a little bit of a new development, but this is a project and a guy, you're buying his physical tools, but realistically, this is a statement from the Knicks saying there's nobody in this draft we wanted that we're going to use. I mean, how do I give this a grade? I'm not even going to play him or use him. This is a B minus. I don't want to be rude to Diawara, who will probably never wear a Knicks jersey ever again. But yeah, he's 20 years old. I've heard his name plenty this year as like a guy. There's a little bit of surprise that he stayed in the draft, but he must have known that he was getting picked. So the Knicks will own his rights, let him play overseas, and chances are he ends up staying there.
Was, I love you for your kindness and your willingness to avoid saying the mean thing about a 20-year-old basketball player. But Cart, I know you're a guy who will say mean things about a 20-year-old basketball player. Can you tell me anything you like about Mo Diawara?
He's tall and has good wingspan and standing reach, but looking at Wass's big board, I think the Knicks might have wanted to take a peek at that as well. I think there was some other highly productive options they could have gone with here. Wass, you finished that by saying he might never even wear a Knicks jersey. I think there's some players that could have worn a Knicks jersey. They could have drafted at this spot. I don't know if he's going to come over and end up playing for the Knicks, but I'm genuinely baffled by this one. It feels like the New York area teams are trying to confuse me with some of their draft picks. I'm not really sure about this one.
All right, so let's go back to 52 here. That was a mind game. We wanted a mind game. It was just a mind game for us on who Mo Diawara is. At 52 here, it's the Phoenix Suns on the clock. However, this pick will go to the Golden State Warriors. A lot of movement here in the final 10 picks of this NBA draft. Cart, what are you looking at for the Warriors? What should they do?
I mean, the Warriors are a team that they pride themselves in ball movement. They are, obviously Steph Curry's of the world, a lot of guys that can pass as well, like Draymond Green. Ryan Nembhard led the country in assists, almost 10 assists a game. He moved the ball extremely well, got his teammates the ball at Gonzaga. I think they might be in for him at this spot, but also if they wanted a guy just to get buckets, Bryce Williams was one of the best of them in ISO situations. Hunter Salas also was a really good bucket getter. So some interesting players that could take the spot.
All right, the pick is in for the Golden State Warriors. And look, it's Jake Fischer breaking the news for us. The Warriors will select Australian wing Alex Tui with the 52nd pick in the NBA draft. Alex Tui, 6'8", barefoot, as you see from Wass's tweet here, had a good year in the NBL. An off-ball guy, a guy that if you're envisioning how he's going to fit in with the Warriors, certainly you can put him in between Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And he's going to have good size for his position, hopefully be able to contribute on two ends. Wass, I'll throw it to you. Is this good value for Alex Tui at 52?
Yeah, this is late. I'm surprised he slipped this late. I give this an A. I think he's somebody who's going to play in the NBA. I really do. Again, the positional size, his shooting percentages from deep weren't great, but again, the eye test sees a shot maker, and he's very good in the open floor, and maybe not the most creative guy, not a great athlete, but when he's got space in front of him, he does a great job of getting to the basket and creating these easy finishing angles for himself. Smart player. You know, the off-ball scoring instincts, I think, are very important because that's going to help him fit in pretty quickly.
Yeah, you put an off-ball guy with a great feel for the game in the Warrior system. It's hard to see that not working. And Greg, obviously, we're college basketball fans. Alex Tui was committed to play for Mark Few at Gonzaga, ends up playing in the NBL. Like Waz said, great positional size, versatility. Put him on the wing with that size in a Warrior system, Warriors offense. I don't see how it doesn't work.
Would you rather play in the NBA or for Mark Few, Cart?
I'd rather play in the NBA.
I would too. I think this worked out pretty nicely for Alex Tui. All right, we are to the 53rd pick in the draft. It's the Utah Jazz on the clock. And I believe we've got some news on this pick. Is that correct? Are we going to Fish right now? Let's go to Fish. Jake Fischer, what can you tell us about 53?
According to league sources, the Jazz are taking Wisconsin guard John Tanji. Yes, Wisconsin guard John Tanji. So we've got a lot of guys here going on two-way contracts. This is another one I'm expecting that to be. And I'm waiting for word from Indiana. I thought I'd be able to do a 2-1 punch here, but I'm still waiting for it. So back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Jake. We'll come right back to you as soon as you have more, of course, my friend. John Tanji, the pick at 53 to Utah. John Tanji, a guy that we only got to see 1 year in our Big Ten Conference at Wisconsin. But whatever your expectation was for him coming in to Wisconsin, he exceeded it. He was sensational. He ended up basically the second best player in the conference, an unstoppable scoring force in that Greg Gard offense. He was a featured player. He was the #1 player on the scouting report every night, often saw double teams, and it just did not matter. I like to say there's 3-level scorers, at least in college. He was a 5-level scorer. This guy created levels that didn't even exist night in and night out for the Badgers last year. I'm not positive it's going to translate the exact same way it did in college to the NBA, but I think as far as late draft values go, this is a guy that would be worth getting on a two-way contract and seeing what you've got. Cart, do you agree?
Yeah, I think, in order to win basketball games, you put the ball in the hoop and you put points on the scoreboard, and John Tanji was one of the best at putting the ball in the hoop. He got to the free throw line, underrated athlete as well. And, at being Big Ten guys, we watched him just light up the conference this year. He's versatile, gets to the hoop, shoots the ball, he'll dunk it on your head. He has a little bit of everything. And, at this point for Utah, getting this guy, I think they get a guy who's going to be able to probably give them buckets this year. Wow, so I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on John Tanji.
Yeah, the numbers this year are the efficiency. First of all, to score 20 points a game is obviously impressive. 46%, 47% from the floor, 39% from deep, and 91% from the free throw line on a lot of volume. Got to the line a ton. Yeah, this is worth the pick. He's 24 years old, or going to be 24 years old. Oh, no, he's already 24. He's going to be 25 next year. So, of course, there's not a lot of upside, and I think as a two-guard, with no playmaking ability, the margin for error is small, but the guy can get you a bucket. This is a B+ for me, and you hope that he can stick in the league by doing one thing, and that's finding a way to score.
Somewhere Jace Richardson is smiling right now, Cart. His favorite player was just selected by the Utah Jazz at 53. Okay, it's the Indiana Pacers who are now on the clock at 54, and mind games aside, what I said a couple picks ago, let's just call this what it is. They could draft Andrew Nembhard's brother here at 54. Ryan Nembhard is still available. He is 6th on Wass's big board right now. This has to at least be a thought for the Indiana Pacers, right, Cart?
Yeah, I love basketball, truly do. You know what I love more? I love family, all right? You don't want to split up family. They have a chance to gain a great basketball player and keep brothers together. What's better than basketball playing brothers, truthfully? It's a great thing to see. Plus, I think they could use him. Tyrese Halliburton is not going to play next year. They need someone that can move the basketball. They were one of the best passing teams in the NBA last year. I think that could provide some good depth for them.
Okay, take the sibling aspect out of this. I mean, obviously that's a huge part of if they were going to make this move. But just the basketball player that is Ryan Nembhard, does he warrant being selected at this point in the draft?
I think he does. I think he was one of the best passers in college basketball. And I thought, watching the Pacers run to the finals last year, part of it was the ball movement. It never stuck, whether it was Tyrese Halliburton pushing the pace, McConnell coming off the bench moving the ball, Nesmith. Everyone was just passing the ball, kept moving. One more was kind of the team motto for them. And I think that Nembhard was one of the best passers in college basketball last year, and I think that would fit, honestly, pretty well in their system.
Let's see if Was loves family as much as you do, Cart. Is that who you would take here if you were GM of the Pacers, Was?
Hell yeah. How could you pass on this opportunity here at 54? It's not like there's anybody else on the board that's going to change your franchise or that's can't miss. First of all, I think he's a decent prospect. I mean, I really do. Again, I always say passing and IQ translate. No, he's not going to give you 15 points a game, but it's going to make the family happy, and it would be a cool development. At least the fans would get a kick out of it for sure.
All right, we've got a clean sweep then. All three of us want to see it happen. It's just on the Indiana Pacers to make it happen, and I'm receiving word that the pick is in. Let's see what Indiana will do with the 54th selection in the 2025 NBA Draft. Nope, they will not take Ryan Nembhard. They are taking Talon Peter at number 54. I got to be completely honest, gentlemen. I did a lot of prep for this show. I did a lot of basketball watching for this show. I don't know who Talon Peter is. Was, can you help me with this? Who is Talon Peter?
I think there are going to be NBA people, NBA teams who don't know who Talon Peter is. And I'm not even going to pretend like I've watched a lot of Talon Peter. He was not on anybody's list. No G League Elite Camp invite. I mean, nothing. He's a shooter. Shot 45% from three. He is a 6'4" senior. My guess is you really buy the shooting stroke, but this is what happens when you have NIL, and a lot of guys go back and you look, really deep to find some type of hidden gem, and you get a guy named Talon Peter, who I'm guessing Twitter is going crazy over right now, saying, I have no idea who this guy is. I truly believe that there are going to be NBA teams that don't know who he is, but he's a shooter. He doesn't do much else, but a pretty accurate one this past season.
45% from three on 4.9 attempts at Liberty this year. He played 2 years of Division I college basketball, his first at Tennessee Tech all the way back in 2021, and then Liberty last season. Fascinating selection. I like your point, Was, about how a lot of the guys that would normally be selected in this range are going back to college. I think we are seeing a weaker close to this draft than maybe initially expected. Hey, let's go to the fishbowl. Let's throw it to Jake Fischer. Fish, what the hell was this?
I don't really know what it is. What I do know is what it isn't, and that Denver was talking to Indiana about trading in for this pick, and you guys were talking Ryan Nembhard. I thought that was what I still believe that is who Denver was targeting, but I just got word from the Nuggets that they are not trading into this draft. They're going to play the undrafted and Exhibit 10 game. So if Ryan Nembhard doesn't get picked here, maybe the Nuggets are your landing spot for him. And it's interesting because I know that Denver really liked Andrew Nembhard way back when, and Indiana just, infiltrated those plans. So we'll see where he goes here. If he doesn't, I think my leader in the clubhouse for his landing spot would be the Denver Nuggets.
Wow. Okay. All right. Fascinating developments here as we all try to pinpoint what will happen to the other Nembhard brother. We now have the Lakers on the clock at 55. However, a proposed trade is set to send this selection over to the Chicago Bulls. Thinking of Chicago, Cart, what should they be looking for here with what's left on the board?
I mean, you still have some highly productive players up there. I'm looking at Tamar Bates, though, honestly. Tamar Bates is a guy that measured extremely well. He started his career in the Big Ten with the Indiana Hoosiers, transferred to Missouri, was an absolute dog defensively, has really good measurables, competes on that end, highly competitive kid. I can see him fitting really well into like that Chicago team. Mark Sears, an All-American candidate, I think could possibly also be here. So definitely some options for them here.
Was, talk me through, for any players that are still undrafted at this point, I mean, I've heard this thrown out throughout the years. I don't know how real it is, but if you are a player, are you hoping to be selected in one of these final 5 picks? Is it the end of the world if you're not? What is the ideal move for a guy that's still on your big board?
That's a really, really good question. It really depends on how important it is to hear your name called on national television, because I think you have more benefits if you're not picked right now, because once this draft ends, the 3rd round begins behind the scenes where you really have more of an opportunity to pick where you're going to go, right? The agent gets on the phone and makes calls to a bunch of different teams, and it happens very quickly, but you have more flexibility, you have more options if you are not picked at this point of the draft. Of course, you're not going to be on the actual 2025 draft board. You can't tell your grandchildren, I was selected. But you do have more options if you're not picked. And I know there's a bunch of agents out there who are totally fine if their guy does not hear his name called.
Interesting. Yeah.
In fact, some of the agents, this happens all the time, tell teams, do not pick my guy.
Wow. I mean, it's just a fascinating process. It really is. Hearing you say there's a 3rd round of the NBA draft, though, we run this back tomorrow night, too? Can we do night 3 and it's just us constantly pestering Jake Fischer for updates on what's happening? It sounds fun.
I'm so thankful for Wasserman and Fischer. I truly am. This is great.
It's been incredible. All right. So this is going to Chicago, and it sounds like the pick is in. Reminder, it's from the Lakers, but it's going to the Bulls. Let's see what the Bulls will do with the 55th pick in the NBA draft. And it looks like it will be Lachlan Olbrich to the Chicago Bulls. All right, this guy has been holding it down on Wass's big board for the last 10 picks or so, and he will hear his name called. Big-time athlete. This is a guy that I think is going to translate athletically immediately at the NBA level. As far as highlight reels go, one of the more fun international prospects in this draft, and a guy who made a lot of noise at the Combine. I know he was like an early standout on one of the first days of the NBA Combine. Was, how do you grade this pick?
A+. I love this pick. I really like him. I think he's going to, again, defy the traditional laws of scouting that say a below-the-rim, undersized big man who doesn't shoot threes can't play. He's one of those guys, I'm not comparing him to Şengün, but a guy like that who just wins with craftiness and footwork and counters and pivots and instincts and touch. I love this kid's game. It's a lot of fun to watch, and he helped his team, Illawarra, win the NBL championship. So I'm a big fan of his. He got to show it at the NBA Combine. He looked like he belonged against a different caliber athlete. I had him higher on my big board, so I'm a fan of this pick this late.
Yeah, obviously very high on your big board. A guy that I think you pointed out, Was, you wonder how he scores, but he ends up just scoring on you, and he just finds a way to put it in the hoop. It's not all about playing above the rim all the time. I'm interested to see what your player comp is for a guy like him who scores in the way he does.
I mean, think of a very poor man's Domantas Sabonis. I mean, that's the idea is the idea of Sabonis, a guy who just plays below the rim and kind of controls the possession with his mind and with his timing and with his footwork and instincts and all that. He doesn't blow by guys, but he just knows how to manipulate the player who's guarding him, and just a great instincts type of offensive player.
Wow. I mean, that's high praise. Sabonis. I can see the vision for it, absolutely. You like that comp card?
Yeah, I do. Great player when Draymond's not stepping on his chest.
Yeah, that's a good point. Lachlan Olbridge, by the way, 1 year in college basketball. He did play for UC Riverside back in 2023. So a kid who has been stateside before. He averaged 11 points and 6 rebounds back in that one season in college. So a name to monitor for sure, a guy who fits into Chicago, and I will not be surprised to see him stick on the real Bulls team and not just find his way to the G League next year. We shall see. 4 picks remaining in the 2025 NBA draft. It is the Memphis Grizzlies who are now on the clock. Card, I'd like to ask you about your heartstrings, my friend. What players that have not been drafted do your heartstrings want to see get their name called in these final 4 picks?
That's an easy question. It's Mark Sears. Mark Sears was one of the best guards in the best conference in college basketball in the SEC. Obviously, he's 4th on Watts' big board, but a lot of the things that Mark Sears do, I think, can translate to the NBA level. He can shoot the ball at an extremely high clip. He creates for others, underrated passer. He's crafty, lefty. I just think that the production that he showed at Bama for one of the better teams in college basketball, in one of the best conferences in college basketball, it would kind of hurt me not to see Mark Sears not drafted.
Can I call my shot? I'm no insider. This is obviously not real reporting. I only go to Jake Fischer and Jonathan Wasserman for that. But I'm putting myself in the shoes of the Memphis Grizzlies right now. Toughness, grit and grind. What have they done in this draft? Javon Small, Cedric Coward. I'm looking at Wass's big board right now. I see Kadari Richmond still available. I mean, that is another guy that just fits the mold of what the Grizzlies have already done. I hope that I'm right, because it would instantly put the Grizzlies on my group of winners at the end of this show to just say that I love the identity of those picks. But we'll see. 2 very different answers with our heartstrings with 4 picks remaining here. I'm also looking at Kadari's teammate at St. John's, by the way, RJ Lewis, a guy that many people thought should have come back to college basketball. Instead, he sort of did the Ace Bailey thing where no one knew what was happening. He wouldn't really interview with teams. People wouldn't pick up the phone when he called. He ends up going into the NBA draft, a guy that may not hear his name called tonight. How surprised are you that we haven't mentioned RJ Lewis until now with 4 picks left in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a conference player of the year. Big East player of the year. Was one of the best players for St. John's. Does a little bit of everything. Good size, good athlete. Thought he might test the NIL market. You see a lot of big numbers thrown around, but doubled down on himself to play in the NBA. It'd be nice to see him get rewarded for him doubling down on himself and hear his name called with these last couple picks.
Well, and as I look through those names on the big board, point blank, many of these names are out of college eligibility. Otherwise, they would be back in college. RJ Lewis, the only one that I see that could have returned to college, instead opted to go to the NBA draft, and we'll see if he is happy or sad with that decision in just a few short moments. The pick is in for the Memphis Grizzlies at 56, and Jake Fischer's going to announce it for us. Fish, what do you got?
The Warriors are trading up here to take, is it Will Richard or Will Richard? I don't even know. Never said this name out loud before. You guys told me.
We get it wrong all the time, too. I'm pretty sure it's Will Richard.
I say Richard.
Yeah. Golden State wanted him at 59. So, I mean, they obviously moved up 3 spots to get him to secure their guy here. The Warriors, I think, are going to be rostering this pick as well, just like we were talking about with Cleveland earlier. So Will Richard off the board to Golden State, who they definitely had. He was supposed to be Mr. Irrelevant, so now he's not. He's the 56th pick and not the 59th pick. Back to y'all.
Will Richard, Mr. Semi-relevant, I guess, going 56. That's fair to say. The Gator Boys, once again, stay hot. Honorary Gator Boy on this panel is Carter Elliott. Cart, do you like this pick?
Yeah, because honestly, this was one of my guys, Greg. Like, I feel like, obviously Walter Clayton was really, really good. A lot of guys also got credit for this Gators team, but one of the things that made this team good is that Will Richard played his role to a T. And you, at this point of the draft, this late in the second round, you are looking for guys to come in and accept their role, and he can do that and provide versatility on both ends of the floor. And also, he's a national championship. He's a winner. What do the Warriors do? They love to win. I feel like he'll fit exactly what they're trying to do there. Obviously, they wanted their guy. Was, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this pick.
If he was Will Richard and he was from France and he was a couple years younger, he might be a lottery pick. but he's Will Richard, and first of all, he's a very good player. He was not on my big board. On paper, there's some question marks about how he fits, but a very good knockdown shooter, a very efficient off-ball scorer, 49% from the floor this year. He's like a very mistake-free type of guy. I mean, I'll give this a B+. I applaud Golden State for thinking out of the box here, going with a guy who was not at the NBA Combine. He did work out with Asa Newell and Alex Condon, who was his teammate in college. I got to see him work out with the agency over there, and he's a knockdown shooter. He's not going to be asked to create much, but he is a very efficient guy off the ball, spot-up player, catch and finish, and so we'll see if he has a chance to stick in a role, spotting up around the arc.
Car, with Golden State adding Richard, is he a guy that you think can take a punch from Draymond Green?
Yeah, and he might even punch him back. The guy's a competitor. He's not. I don't think he takes anything from anybody. He did play somewhat of him and Elijah Martin were like the Bass Bros for the Florida team. I feel like around the finesse that was Walter Clayton. So I love the fit. I love the fit.
It's a good guy to gamble on, I think, and you're seeing some teams strategically make decisions here that do not indicate they actually want this player on their NBA roster. I think this is a move by Golden State that may actually give Will Richard a chance to impact things on the floor for the Warriors next season. We will see what happens. Okay, let's move to the 57th pick in the draft. It's the Orlando Magic who are on the clock. But reminder, this pick will go to the Boston Celtics through a proposed trade. The Celtics trying to make one more splash before this draft ends. Cart, what do you think they're trying to do?
It's going to be interesting to see where they go. Obviously, Bryce Williams is a guy I feel like we haven't talked about enough on here, but he's a guy that scored at a very high level for, honestly, a solid Nebraska team. Hunter Sallis, after transferring to Wake Forest from Gonzaga, was one of the top scorers in the ACC. There's a lot of different ways they could go here for a team that's going to be without Jason Tatum next year, and every player on their roster seems to be in trade talks every single minute. I feel like they're just looking for a piece to add here that could possibly bring some productivity.
The pick is in, and if it's Mark Sears, I'm going to kick myself because I'll be annoyed the Celtics got Mark Sears. Okay, it's Max Shulga. I don't have to kick myself. The Celtics have selected Max Shulga with the 57th pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Shulga out of VCU, a guy that I feel like I heard announcers constantly give him the classic he's more than just a shooter trope, but I want to start with what he does best. It is shooting, and he can shoot off the move. He can shoot off of screens, as you're seeing here. He's a guy that has great footwork, quickly on the move in weird spots with his shot. He can make contested shots, but he can put the ball on the floor as well. He doesn't shy away from contact. He's tough. He's chippy. He's got some shit to his game, for lack of a better word. Was, how do you grade Max Shulga as the 57th pick in the draft?
Yeah, he's tough. I like him this late. I'll give this a B+. Reminds me a bit of Ron Baker from a handful of years ago. A combo guard, like you said. He's going to have a chance in the NBA because he's a career 39% three-point shooter, but averaged over 3.5 assists the last 3 seasons. I think he's a guy who plays on and off the ball. He'll make good decisions. Crafty, with the ball in his hands. But again, he's a very reliable shooter. And I think his backcourt versatility, someone who can run pick and rolls and spot up, is going to give him a chance.
Boston's going to love Max Shulga, aren't they, Cart?
Yeah, they are. One of the best things about Max Shulga is that if you asked him right now, I bet you he would say he's the best guard in the draft. And I feel like you need a little bit of irrational confidence at this point. And I think it helps his game, and I think it helps him be a high-level shot maker. You saw how the Celtics fans fell in love with guys like Peyton Pritchard. I think there's a world where they end up falling in love with Max Shulga as well.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by maybe if it's a bench unit or I don't know if Peyton Pritchard, he'll probably start next year for Boston. But the idea of Shulga and Peyton Pritchard together, I feel like that's just going to piss off opposing NBA defenses.
Yeah, the first Instagram post they post together is going to set the world ablaze.
Should be iconic. Okay, we've got 2 picks left in the draft. On the clock next is the Cleveland Cavaliers at 58. You know what? Let's go to Was's big board if we could here. I just want to take a look at these 10 names remaining here that Was likes, as we have 2 picks that we are waiting for. Bryce Williams, the best available per Was. Hunter Sallis, Tamar Bates, a couple guys we have mentioned. Mark Sears and Ryan Nembhard if you're looking for point guards. Andrew Carr, another Kentucky Wildcat, could be taken as well. I don't know where the Cleveland Cavaliers will go. If they're going win now, Cart, who would be the best selection out of that group?
Honestly, I think I might like Salou to bring a little bit of wing depth, some scoring stuff. Obviously, they have the guard play. They're going to have Garland and Donovan Mitchell on the team. I think some wing scoring coming off the bench could help them out a bit.
All right, we'll see. There's a lot of guys who did a lot of winning in college still on this list, so I think the options are honestly pretty solid for a team like the Cavs that may have their sights set on trying to win the East next year after all that winning they did this year. 64 wins in the regular season before bowing out in the conference semifinals. This franchise is close to turning a corner, and we know the East is wide open, and this is their last chance to make one more big splash before this draft ends. Was, given who is still available at this point, what name do you want to hear come off the board before the draft ends?
Well, from sources around the league, I'm told this is going to be Salou Nyang, I believe, is what I'm hearing. And it'll probably be a draft and stash guy if this is the truth and it does happen. But, yeah, there's some, like Tamar Bates, to me, not going drafted after the pre-draft process that he had, Mark Sears after the career he had. It's crazy to think that teams are just going to pass on them, but let's see who the pick is.
Yeah, there it is. You got it right, Was. It is Salou Nyang, taken with the 58th pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, Was, talk us through this one. What are they getting with Salou Nyang, and what's your grade?
Yeah, this is all about draft and stash. I mean, how do I give a draft and stash guy a grade? Let's go with a B. He is just all potential and physical tools. He plays in Italy. He's from Senegal. He is a two-guard. Really, his value is on the defensive end, using his physical tools, his quickness. But he struggles a little bit around the basket. He's not really a shooter yet. He's a total project. But again, this was more about having a guy overseas that you can control a little bit, and you got to hope he develops, and you save your training camp spots for other people you have in mind.
You know what this is telling me, Cart? There's too many picks in the NBA draft. That's my takeaway. I feel like we're seeing a bunch of teams just like, I don't want this pick. Let me draft someone that won't play for me.
We were one pick away from me making it through this whole draft, knowing every single player that got drafted. Hand up accountability, because I'd never lie to you, Was. I've never heard of this gentleman, but I will do my research and I will find out who he is. Does look to have some really good measurables, but yeah, I thought I was going to make it through this draft knowing every prospect, but I never saw this guy yet.
It's interesting to see a couple of those names come off late. We talked through the Talon Peter move by Indy. We're talking through Nyang now with Cleveland. Two teams that, again, I keep singing the praises at the time, should be going for it right now, or at least went for it this year and made deep postseason runs, but not looking to bolster things here with actual draft picks, instead playing the developmental game and saving their roster spots elsewhere. This takes us to the final pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Mr. Irrelevant, as Jake Fischer alluded to earlier in the show. We'll have to see what happens here, 59 to the Golden State Warriors. Cart, what would you set the odds at on you knowing who Mr. Irrelevant will be in about 5 minutes?
I'd make a little sizable wager that's maybe Mark Sears, because honestly, the Warriors being in this spot is a moment where I'd text you guys in a group chat 5 years from now and say, you remember when the Warriors ended up getting Mark Sears with the last pick and the league let the Warriors get Mark Sears? It would feel good for a guy that productive in college to get drafted here. I brought it up earlier. Nembhard is another player that I think could be really good moving the ball for a Warriors team. There's some really good value here, even with it being the Mr. Irrelevant of the NBA draft.
Vlad Golden, my center, sneaking onto Wasp.
Let's not get crazy. I feel like Wasp threw him at 10 just to make you feel good.
Well, it made me feel great, so I'm very content with that. I mean, a 7-footer that, made 3 threes last year? He'd fit in great with the Splash Bros.
He has to be with Danny Wolf or else he can't do that.
I guess that's fair. This has been an interesting final 10 picks to this draft. I feel like we came in through the 30s and 40s saying, best availables going off the board pretty quickly. These last 9 or 10 picks have not felt that way. I mean, there's been some picks I like, don't get me wrong. John Tonje at 53 is a guy I really believe could turn the corner. Will Richard, we mentioned, we love his game. Alex Tui, another guy with high upside. But I don't know. I think we may be in store for one more surprise here before this draft ends. And I think we might even have a proposed trade right now. It's the Houston Rockets who are technically on the clock, but now I'm hearing it's proposed to go to the Memphis Grizzlies. Fascinating.
A Grizzly is someone who we think have been kind of a winner of this draft. Could end it with a bang here. Very interested to see where they go with this.
Yeah, and this is, well, or is this the result of the earlier trade? Because Will Richard at 56, that was a move. Yeah, this is the Warriors trade. That's what this is. So this is the payoff from it at 59. Okay, makes a little more sense. We'll see. What do you think? What should they be going for here, Card? If it is for Memphis with the final pick in this draft, who are they after?
I mean, I think that you stood very packed on the type of player that they want to draft here. Maybe you just go with Kadari Richmond, a guy who can bring a little bit of toughness, defensive versatility. I think they kind of want to get these guys that have length, can defend at a high level. A guy like Kadari Richmond could do that. R.J. Lewis, his teammate, another player that can do that as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if they kind of keep the same vision that I feel like they've had this whole draft.
Yeah. No, I got to be honest. Night 2 of the draft just didn't hit the same without the Nets taking 5 7-foot point guards.
I miss them.
Don't you miss that? Oh, boy. All right. Well, Memphis, 2 very tough players that they've already added in this draft with Javon Small and Cedric Coward, a couple guys that we feel fit that archetype still available. But let's see who the Memphis Grizzlies will get with the final selection in the 2025 NBA draft. I will say the NBA draft likes to drag this out at the very end. I was just going to say,
I mean, the timers are put there for a reason. When it hits 0, the time is up.
I mean, I feel like we've got Deputy Commissioner at the podium for about 45 minutes. And hey, what do you know? The pick has been made. The Memphis Grizzlies have selected Jamai Mashack out of Tennessee. This is not Kadari Richmond, but I will say this is another guy that fits the mold of the grit and grind toughness mentality that we've been talking about for Memphis. Mashack, arguably one of the best defenders in all of college basketball, a guy who could just erase opposing teams' primary scoring options in the SEC last year. I don't know that I expected to hear Mashack's name called. I don't know that Jamai expected to hear his name called tonight, but it fits the culture. It fits the DNA of the Memphis Grizzlies. Do you like this pick, Cart?
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about them wanting to get players that defend at an extremely high level. Jamai Mashack, you don't get on the floor for Tennessee and Rick Barnes if you don't play defense, and he was the absolute best defender on that team. And not only was he the best defender on the team, I thought he defended a lot of different positions, and he knew that was his role, and he played it well enough. If he can make shots at a higher clip, I think he can find himself on an NBA floor a little bit more. But if you're trying to get a guy with defensive athleticism and length and versatility, Jamai Mashack was one of the best defenders, on-ball defenders in the country.
All right, let's throw it to Was. Was, your final grade of the 2025 NBA draft. What do you have for Jamai Mashack?
A+. I like the effort they put into the 59th pick, and they, like, he's got the chance to be a specialist, right? I mean, that's this late in the draft. You're not going to find any upside. You're looking for a guy who does one thing well, and maybe he does it well enough where he can carve out a career of doing it. Mashack had 5 steals against Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. He had 11 total in those 4 games. He is tough. He fits exactly what Memphis would be looking for. And, I mean, it would be amazing if he could actually make some outside shots, but he's going to come into the game, and we know exactly what he's going to be in there to do.
All right, there you have it. Let's do our recap of the final 9 picks of the 2025 NBA draft. I spoke to it just a moment ago. Some names that I'm shocked were selected, but maybe I shouldn't be shocked based on how teams are strategically using these picks late in the second round. I'll throw it to you first, Cart. What's your biggest moment of the final 9 picks of this draft?
I think seeing Talon Peter come off the board is still very surprising. And just looking at that last 10, I can't wrap my head around the fact that Mark Sears wasn't one of those guys picked. I mean, I honestly know that you want to maybe get some draft and stash guys here, but you can't argue with productivity in one of the best conferences in the SEC in college basketball. I just feel like I need to lead the charge for justice for Mark Sears. Maybe Fischer will let us know that the Nets signed him and they just added another point guard or something. But I can't believe Mark Sears didn't go in this last 10 picks.
Yeah, Cart, in fact, let's go down the avenue you're leading us right now. Let's take a look at some of the best players who did not hear their name called in this NBA draft. You just mentioned Mark Sears. I think his Alabama teammate, Grant Nelson, was a guy that I thought we may potentially see taken in this draft. You got the St. John's duo of Kadari Richmond and R.J. Lewis. Certainly Bryce Williams. I mean, I think he has the all-around game to absolutely be one of the best 40 players in this draft class, if not the top 59. Was, what's your biggest surprise that's still remaining on your big board?
Well, let's just really quickly touch on Mark Sears' thing. It shows you how much NBA teams are afraid of these small guards. We saw Jace Richardson drop to 25. Sears doesn't get picked. Todd Pettiford, had to go back to college because he couldn't get any first-round insurances. So that is clearly a theme here to keep in mind. Biggest surprise, I think Raynaud falling to 42 was the biggest shocker for me based on the buzz that he had coming in and the particular skill set he offers, which is very valuable. So that was the big shocker to me.
Wow. What's the biggest surprise for you, Cart? Outside of Sears.
Outside of Sears, I have to go with Nembhard not getting drafted, to be honest with you. A guy that led the country in assists. I understand that, like Was said, it seems that, NBA teams are scared of undersized guys, which, by the way, justice for the short kings of the world. But, he's a guy that was highly productive and passed the ball at an extremely high level. You don't have to worry about him. And I don't like to play the game of, his brother was good. But, his brother was good in the NBA. They do some of the same things, even though he is kind of a smaller version of his older brother. It's surprising to see a guy who I think can be a guard who gets other people involved is not someone that could be picked at this spot.
I do think clearly the entire basketball world is screaming that size matters right now, and I guess that's why Bleacher Report put 6'3" and 6'7" on the couch for the draft. You feel me?
Come on.
6'3".
Hold
All
on
right.
now.
Jake Fischer, I want to throw it to you. Can you give us your biggest surprise as far as who did not get drafted tonight?
I did think Nembhard was going to be picked in here. My surprise was actually who did get drafted and where. I am surprised that Ryan Kalkbrenner went to Charlotte. Again, we were talking about, I really thought that, and I'm being told right now that Tamar Bates is taking a 2A with Denver and Nembhard is taking a 2A somewhere else. I don't know where, but not the Nuggets. With Kalkbrenner, it's such a surprise, but also don't be surprised if he ends up being Charlotte's starting center come night one right now. Not a lot of competition in that front court, so that's interesting. And on the flip side, the fact that Maxime Raynaud fell all the way to Sacramento, he's someone that I think was right in the mix in all of the Kings' attempts to trade into the first round. Obviously, ended up being Nee Clifford. But if Clifford went earlier, I think he was someone that they would have taken in the back of the first. So I'm sure they're pumped to get him at 42. That's what I got for you guys right now.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Jake, let's keep you, stand by for us because I want to get your winners and losers to end the show as well. Let's pivot to that next. Carl, I'll have you go first. Give me your biggest winner and biggest loser from the NBA draft.
I think I'm going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies. I think the Memphis Grizzlies had a clear vision. I think that they got guys that can defend at a high level, and they realized that, part of winning at the NBA is kind of establishing a culture, and the Grizzlies have this culture that embodies their city. They play tough, they compete, and every single draft pick that they got does that. So I think that, for a team that wants to establish a winning culture, get back to the high-level grit and grind type basketball that they played that won them so many games, with a healthy John Morant, a healthy Jaren Jackson, this team could very much still compete.
All right, Was, we'll throw it to you next. Give me your biggest winner, biggest loser, please.
Man, I like Jameer Watkins going to Washington. I think that was a very solid pick and the type of player that they could certainly use. Trey Johnson yesterday was a big scorer, but I think that Watkins does the things that Trey Johnson doesn't. We're looking for a loser now. I guess a loser is, a guy like Mark Sears who plays how many big games has he played in his college career, and it went for nothing in terms of, trying to get himself picked. That was that I feel for him because of how much production he put up, and I think because he measured what he measured, that really worked against him.
On that note, my biggest loser is another college-oriented player. It's R.J. Lewis. This is a guy who left NIL earnings on the table. He would have gotten an enormous check, possibly one of the biggest checks from a blue blood type program if he chose to stay in college. Instead, here he is, not hearing his name called on the NBA draft night. We'll see where his career goes next. As far as a winner goes, I'm sticking with my collegiate theme here, but How is it not Duke? I mean, that was one of the stories for me of this entire draft. Obviously, they have the number 1 player, but Kon Knippel, Tyrese Proctor, and Sion James hear their names tonight. Man, obviously, on night 1. This team was phenomenal. We knew how good they were in the moment, but it really was a reminder of how special that collection of talent was last year. And a couple of these guys have now paired up for the next step in their career as Kon Knippel and Sion James head to Charlotte. In fact, there was a moment last night I want to talk about. I don't know if you guys caught this. Cooper Flagg was caught on camera as one of his teammates was drafted. His reaction was something to behold. Let's take a look at that video.
You know, when the lottery happened and Mavs got the number 1 pick, I said, this kind of feels like destiny. What ran through your head when you saw that?
A lot went through. I'm sorry.
I love that live reaction. How you feeling watching your teammate get drafted?
Insane. I mean, it's surreal. You know, Kon, that was my roommate last year, so just to see him have that moment with his family, it's just insane. That really just gave me chills. That was crazy.
Heartwarming moment there. Also tells me that we need to get Cooper Flagg to follow our guys Was and Fish, because he should not have been that surprised that his boy Kon was going to Charlotte, Cart.
Yeah. When will you ever get that excited for me?
Well, that's the thing. I feel like that's my reaction every time you chug a beer, but I've seen you do that hundreds of times, and I'm still surprised every time that you can do it. So I don't know. I digress. All right. Let's go to Fish. I want to get Fish his biggest winner and loser from draft at night 2 as well.
Big winner are draft rights players. We had 2 players who had their draft rights traded. The first was New York. I'm blanking on the guy's name, Mark Tobin. But then Justinian Jessup, who I don't even know who that is, was who Golden State ended up trading in that package with the 59th pick and their 2032 second to get up to 56 and take Will Richard. A loser? I mean, I'd say the Pacers, being that maybe they got a little too inside baseball with Talon Peter. I was texting a friend with the front office, and they were laughing and happy that the ESPN broadcast apparently did not have footage to play of him, which maybe that means you're overthinking it. But clip this if Talon Peter becomes an essential contributor to Indiana filling their hole with Tyrese Halliburton out for the year, flame me for it. But for now, I don't think it's great when you're like, haha, no one had even a clip of this guy. That's how, you know, smart we are unearthing this hidden gem. I don't buy that. So yeah.
Yeah, I was laughing last night because there was a clip of Wendy who was basically making this joke. I don't know who Yannick Conan Niederhauser was, and I was like, well, that's lame. Come on, you got to know these guys. And then twice in the final 10 picks tonight, I'm like, I haven't heard of this. That's the chaos of the NBA draft for us here. It sounds like we have some Mark Sears news before we wrap the show. We do want to address this since we talked about Mark Sears all night. He has signed a 2-way NBA deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. Cart, your thoughts on a potential fit with the Bucks for Mark Sears?
I like that. A guy who can score the basketball. Obviously, Dame Lillard's health is going to be a big question with that team, and he's aging a bit as well. I think Mark Sears is a guy that could play right away. Might be undersized, but you can't argue with the production. They're used to playing with a scoring point guard that can also pass, and Damian Lillard, not saying he's that type of player, but you know, getting Mark Sears, an All-American productive player on a 2-way deal for a Milwaukee Bucks team that I think needs talent, you got to feel good about that, and hopefully him and Giannis can be good friends.
Was, any thoughts on Sears to the Bucks? Did this work out okay for one of our favorite players that went undrafted?
Listen, I don't really think it matters where he goes. I mean, I guess things could change if Milwaukee does blow it up. But regardless, whether he's playing for the Bucks or whoever else, Summer League is going to be very important for him. And I would say when you're playing in Summer League, you're not just auditioning for the team jersey that you're wearing. Everybody's watching you play, and so, you know, again, it doesn't matter where he ends up. He was always going to get a 2-way deal, and now he's got to make the most of it in Summer League and G League. He's going to have to work his way up, regardless of what team he went to.
Yeah, well, at bare minimum, a consolation prize of potentially playing alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. there's worse consolation prizes out there for marks here. So, all right, you know what? Let's go around the horn one last time. I'll give you a chance to give your final thoughts and a sign-off as we close the show. Let's throw it to Was first. Was, it's been fun working with you over the last 2 nights, my friend. What are your final thoughts?
Man, it just goes by so fast. Props to the second round clock people, because last night was ridiculous how long that first round took. This one, at least, we got done in like 2.5 hours. But I thought this was a strong draft. I mean, especially coming off last year with Rasheer at 1. I feel pretty good about this draft. We're going to look back and remember this one, and not just because of Cooper, but because of some of these guys in the top 5. And as we move down into the late first, I think we got some good players here in the second round. So I'm feeling pretty good about 2025.
For one last time, let's throw it to Jake Fischer in the Fishbowl. Fish, had fun with you these last 2 nights, my friend. Give us your final thoughts, please.
Yeah, a lot of fun with you guys. Like I said off camera, the way you guys just have takes and can roll on all these dudes, even the ones you don't know, it's impressive. So shout out to y'all for the great work. I'd say this was definitely a draft full of trades for me. 15, I just counted, 15 of the 29 picks in the second round got moved tonight. 10 in the first round total, and obviously we saw a lot of veterans getting moved before the draft kicked off earlier this week, starting with the Kevin Durant trade on Sunday. Only one veteran player, right off the top of mind, got moved in the draft, Mark Williams. But just looking ahead to free agency, which that's how this, I mean, it's already starting, right? These two-way deals that are being signed are technically free agency contracts being signed right now. They'll all apply to the moratorium period until July 6th. But yeah, there's going to be more trades coming up, especially as we get into when the league calendar flips, and a lot of these teams are going to have access to their full mid-level exception. A lot of those are going to be used for trades now, and we still have the Atlanta Hawks with their $25 million traded player exception out there to be used as a sign and trade. There's not a lot of cap space on the open market, just Brooklyn. So if you want to pry away a Santi Aldama or a Jonathan Kuminga, even the Washington Wizards, I know, want to help facilitate a sign and trade of Malcolm Brogdon. There's been 25 trades so far in the draft. There were 5 or 6 trades in this week before the draft. There are many more trades to come, so stay tuned for all that.
All right, that's music to NBA fans' ears. If you enjoyed this draft and you enjoyed the chaos of all these trades, there is more to come. Thanks for the kind words, Jake, as well. Cart, I had a blast with you, my friend. We've done this for years in our basements, but getting to do it on a platform like this was just pretty awesome. What's your final words for us, final takeaway from these 2 nights?
Yeah, I mean, so much talent in this NBA draft. A lot of fun with all the chaos, the trades, the picks, hanging out with you, hanging out with Was. Was, by the way, your stylist, impeccable. Don't know if it's you or somebody else, but you really put it on. Fisher, everything I need in the fishbowl. It's not, well, you know what? You're special, my friend. It was a great time. Love seeing all the guys come off the board. Interested to see some of these two-way guys that get signed. And Summer League's just around the corner, so basketball will be at our fingertips. And I love basketball players that play basketball.
It's my favorite thing about basketball players when they play basketball. Yeah. Shout out to all the producers behind the scenes here at Bleacher Report. This was an awesome show. I had a blast with all of you guys. I will remember this draft truly for a bunch of GMs that executed their vision. I mean, whether it was Phoenix getting Kaman Malawach and then also pairing a veteran center alongside him, whether it was the Brooklyn draft that we made jokes about, getting all that playmaking. I think we saw Washington end up with a couple huge wings with size. We saw Charlotte get a bunch of good culture guys that can shoot the basketball. It felt like team after team, they came in with plans, they executed those plans, and for the most part, it was really fun to watch it play out. So we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you watched us these last 2 nights, thank you so much. Bleacher Report has a lot more NBA coverage for you in store. For Jake Fischer, for Jonathan Wasserman, for Carter Elliott, for our entire team behind the scenes, I am Greg Waddell. Thank you for watching the NBA Draft with us.